Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is episode 17, where we will cover the final chapters of The Great Hunt. Specifically for the pedantic listeners, those are chapters 43 through 50. I'm joined, as always, by my excitable friends Willie.
Goeienaand.
And Jody.
Goeiemorgen. I was saying that son of a bitch is going to steal my Afrikaans, and he did.
we just can't get away from the foreign language / time zone shenanigans in every intro, can we?
No, it's what we do.
Another thing we do is cover Wheel of Time books on a podcast, and man, do we get to cover a rad section of the series today. I mean, this build up, in the previous episode the build up was fairly flat, I would say. Like, not an awful lot of excitement, just like we said at the time, just moving all the pieces on the board into the right place. And here in this final stretch we get all sorts of action, and I've been champing at the bit to get to this episode. This finale to me is substantially more cohesive and understandable, if I'm brutally honest, than the end of the Eye of the World. Yeah.
I understood what happened now at the end. I was like, okay.
It took multiple readings and hours of discussion and editing to really get that, but I think I got it finally.
I've listened to that old episode of our finale of the Eye of the World again since it came out, and there are still some open questions there that I have not fully wrapped my head around. And look, brutal honesty, even in this finale, there is a couple things that I still have question marks around, but we'll get to that when we get to it. We will, as always, obviously choose our favorite moments from this stretch of chapters. We will also talk about the book towards the end as a whole and not just in this section, and pick our favorite moment from the entire book. And before we do that, I'll do the thing where I go over all of our previous favorite moments from this book, which is a fun little trip down memory lane. It'll be good for a couple of chuckles. And then at the very end, I guess I'll give our readers and listeners the chapters that we'll cover in our next episode, which is straight into the Dragon Reborn. But there's a lot to get through before we get there.
And I have read none of it. So this time I am going to be on the 6 chapters mark. I'm just going to do this and be happy about that. And just, I've made my bed and I'm sleeping in it.
Amazing. There is something exciting about sort of like a kid opening their presents on Christmas morning, like, okay, cool, now we've done this episode, what are the next 6 chapters going to hold? And without fail, there is something to sink your teeth into, and often a lot. But before we get to all the fun stuff, let's do the administrative side of things. And
the boring shit.
Callbacks.
Look, I don't want to call it that, but I would be remiss if I did not address a couple things from the last episode. And this time, in true season finale form, there are actually quite a few things to cover.
Oh, dear Lord.
A lot of them are interesting. Some of them are pedantic, almost as a joke, but we'll cover some pronunciations.
What? It's pedantic, you. When did that happen?
Okay, so we'll do a couple callbacks from our listeners first. Richard Jackson wrote in on Twitter, and he said that in our previous episode we were talking about how Varen lied to the elders in the steading, saying, sort of intimating that they know how to use the portal stones, when all she actually said is that the Brown Arger know a great many things, which is an objective truth. The Brown Arger does know a great many things, but she was just being, even Black Arger oaths aside, she was just flexing those well-trained Aes Sedai muscles of, just answering in a half-truth to make the people understand what she wants them to understand, not necessarily what is true.
Yeah, old habits die hard, hey?
I'm sure. These ladies are old, and Varen's even, I think, slightly older than most of them anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's probably doing this just by reflex. Vili, you also were sort of surprised that Varen doesn't seem to have caught on to the fact that Selene is Lanfear. But
I think I called it daft.
Yes. Something like that,
He remembers.
yes. And then, Richard, who had written in, says that, look, even if she does know, which everyone, I think, assumes that she does. I mean, she's not daft. She's the exact opposite of that. But the dark oaths, which we have not come across yet, as first-time readers also wouldn't know that Varen is Black Arger, obviously absolver of the three oaths, but they have oaths for the Black Arger that they need to stick to, and one of them is that they will not reveal any secrets of the Black Arger up until I think the final hour of their life or something like that, which is what Varen takes advantage of.
I
in
remember
true
that.
in a true stroke of pedantry genius, she uses that rule to specifically spill the beans to the crew when before she kills herself. She takes her own life and she uses the last hour before she does it to come clean to everyone.
Spill all the beans. Yeah.
All of them. It's so good. Oh, God. But yes, that's why, even, as I suspect, Varen does know that Selene is probably Lanfear. She couldn't say anything even if she wanted to because her dark oaths actually prevent her from doing that. Then we had a couple of quick ones. We've been pronouncing Damane the wrong way. Damane is not the way that you pronounce it. It's Damane.
I heard it pronounced as Damane, but I'm like, that's just too, similar to the Damane. Tarabon and Doman, Aradoman, they're the Damane. So I thought, no ways, I don't like it.
That's a valid point. It's going to be a tough one, even maybe harder than Kyrian to shake, because I have so much emotion wrapped up with Damane.
Pure hatred.
We quickly went over, what is the Court of the Nine Moons, and it is actually specifically the Royal Throne Room in Shawndar. So when the Shawntan say, someone will be hauled to the Court of the Nine Moons, it is to be, presented to the Empress. This is a cool one.
Mm.
People do seem to think that it was Tom that killed Galdrian.
Really?
Nobody ever talks about it. And there might be something further on in the books, maybe when Tom rejoins them again, or someone brings it up, maybe he has another reaction to it, like even just like a facial expression or something like that. But Tom has that wolfish grin when he leaves the inn, after Den had been killed, and he told the innkeeper that he has one man to kill, something like that. And then you don't hear from him again for ages. And no one says how Galdrian died, so it is actually, I wouldn't say consensus, but it is widely accepted that it was Tom. And I would love that to be the case. So that is now...
Totally.
That's my headcanon for
you
sure.
You took my Dina, or Dana. Everything
Dana.
now is pronounced differently for me. Yes. But yes, he did a little revenge killing there, I reckon.
And speaking of Tom's deceased girlfriend, I can't be forgiven for this, but I couldn't remember the name of the journalist that coined the term fridging, so I thought I would just mention it now to give them their proper dues, and it was a journalist by the name of Gail Simone. Vili, in the last episode, you unwittingly coined a phrase that I would love to start using on a more regular basis now, and that word is shituation.
Shituation.
Vili was drunk.
both when I edited the podcast and listened back to it again later, I laughed out loud both times when I heard you use that word, and it is going to come up again. I mean, as you guys know, there are a couple of situations that arise through the course of the series. And then the last quick hit is after using the portal stones, the horses were very much shaken. We were speculating about whether the horses, lived memories from other lives. And the line was that the horses stood stiff-legged and quivering, eyes wide and rolling. So, I mean, they
saw some
shit.
Up.
They lived some lives.
I suppose they all died as war horses, like in 80% of those lives.
Probably. Then there was a big one for us that we quite seriously contemplated, and that was, how did Varen know that Trail had no soul inside him if she couldn't channel inside the steadying?
Mm-hmm.
And apparently this question has been posed to Robert Jordan himself. So I'm going to read a couple quotes from him from book signings and stuff that he has actually, where he has addressed specifically that question. So at a book signing after A Crown of Swords, Robert Jordan said, "We're going to find out something in the next few books about people without souls and characteristics of them source." I mean, that's a bad quote, but you get the gist of it. I mean, so Robert Jordan had intended for there to be a characteristic to these people that you could sense without the one power. Berylane in Winter's Heart says to Perrin when he was in the wolf dream too deeply, "You slept like a man already dead." Anura said, "You almost felt like someone who had lost his soul, cold no matter how many blankets we piled on you. It felt as well when I touched you." Oh, I felt it as well when I touched you. So Berylane could sense, something different about Perrin when he was, fully in the wolf dream as well. And finally, from the summary of this chapter on the actual encyclopedia Wheel of Time, Varen apparently delves trail, yet in a setting she cannot touch the true source. At signings, Jordan purportedly said that detecting a soul does not require channeling. So there you have it. Okay, one more before we get into the good stuff. This is another little history lesson. The Aes Sedai who invented the Adam was called Diane. I don't know how to pronounce it. She has too many vowels in the middle of her name for any sane person to claim to know how to pronounce it. But when Arthur Hawking's son arrived in Seanchan, who was Luther, I think, there were already people there, obviously, but also people calling themselves Aes Sedai. But these Aes Sedai did not even know about the White Tower, and they did not swear the 3 oaths. They didn't know anything about their Aes Sedai counterparts on the other mainland.
But they used the same name.
But they call themselves Aes Sedai. So obviously remnants from the Age of Legends, that name Aes Sedai had come all the way down through the ages. But because there was no 3 oaths, they used the one power as a weapon. They used it to kill each other. There was like, it was like warring tribes almost. I mean, tribes conjures the wrong image, but, it was like guerrilla warfare, Aes Sedai running around using the power as a weapon. And when Diane met Luther, she thought, okay, here's someone that, she can sort of throw her power behind and maybe put an end to this sort of, scattered, fragmented population and get behind this person who is going to unite them. And that's when she invented the Adam. And then the passage that we also read, obviously, in the last section was when Diane herself was collared. Her screams shook the towers of midnight. And the Towers of Midnight is the name of a coastal fortress in Seanchan on the coastline, where Luther originally made his first stand. When he arrived there, he sort of, I don't know if he took it over or if he built it or whatever, but the Towers of Midnight is a Seanchan fortress in Seanchan, which I didn't know, despite one of the books being called the Towers of Midnight. I always thought it was, a reference to the Tower of Genji or something related to the Finn.
That's what I thought as well.
Maybe I led you astray there.
Guess what? We were wrong on this.
Weird.
It's totally
the
bizarre.
First time ever.
You guys can make those acknowledgements. I'm never wrong.
I just thought it was cool that there were Aes Sedai running around on Seanchan throwing fireballs at each other. That's cool.
I did not know that either.
Bell firing each other.
I wonder if they could have had something to do with the scorch marks in the parallel dimension where they went to go fetch Grom from.
Potentially.
Oh, guys, we haven't even started the podcast yet. Easy.
We're going to have to do a bonus episode with just like all our dangling threads and tug at all of them.
Let's just get through these chapters first.
Okay, Jody, let's do it. No, you're right. Let's get into it because, man, it is mouthwatering stuff. When we left off with the boys, Ingtar and Varen, they were all discussing how to proceed to Falme. Like Varen and Ingtar sort of wanted to wait a bit and Rand just wanted to rush in. And Elaine and Nynaeve had taken up residence in Falme, casing out the houses where Min was staying and where Egwene was imprisoned. And that's where we left everyone sort of poised on the brink of action. And now we can go into chapter 43, which is called A Plan. And Willie, why don't you take us through it?
Yeah, it is. It's a plan. They're making one. Now,
the end.
The end. There's a plan. So we left Min and Egwene, where the Rena was her name, came in and sensed that she had channeled. And then so begins her torture again. And she was renamed Tuli at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's terrible. Anyway, so Min can't stand this torturing of Green. She can't do anything about it, but she's just sort of like digging her nails into her palms. She walks out, tears running down her face. Just in her head, she was thinking that she's going to go back to, I assume, her quarters or room or whatever, but she sort of wiped her eyes and she's in the middle of the street already, walking down the street towards the harbor there. And the next minute, she hears her name, Min. And lo and behold, there is Nynaeve and Elaine. And it's ready to sort of go. And a little bit of jokes because now she's in a dress. And Nynaeve giving her a bit of chirp, like, "Oh, that color is becoming on you," and like, "That's all good." Like, yeah, I've often wondered like how you'd look in a dress. And, maybe you should keep going with this. But then I've also wondered how I would look in breeches. Type of thing.
Acknowledging that Min's dress sense is actually quite appealing at times.
Yeah, no, it's practical indeed, especially if you got to jump on a horse. Yeah, so they then start taking the walk down to the harbor, and Elaine and Nynaeve then starts telling Min about, they're starting to make plans to get out of here. Where's Egwene? It's like, well, she's still alive, but she's now developed this sense, or she's developed this affinity to find ore, and they're going to take her away. Like, that's going to happen, and they really need to be quick about it. With all of that, Elaine wishes that Rand was there. She quickly thinks about the sword, and with him at least they can burst in and rescue. Nynaeve then that tells them that you shouldn't always think with the sword. Like, men always thinks about fighting in the sword. And then she touches her chest, or under her clothes. Her cloak is the rings that she's touching, and then saying, well, most men, obviously thinking of old land there, is better than other men. And I think what was the exact, she just said like most men. And with that, Min leads them to the inn where the ship captain is, where they've been having the conversation, or Min has been finding this captain now. Turns out to be old good mate Crabs, Damane, Bale Damane, that sees three women walking in, doesn't know, obviously hasn't met Elaine and Nynaeve, and they looks, they're undercover as riffraff of the fishing village, living in a little fishmonger shack.
Above a fishmonger, yeah.
Yeah. And but anyway, he sees them looking the way they look. It's like, you brought friends to drink my coin now. It's like, you bring more friends to drink me coin. It's like, no matter, I've got plenty of coin. he's basically emptied his holes at the harbor there, selling all the fireworks that he was carrying and all of that. But the conversation gets quite earnest about, are you willing to sail? And sort of, well, what are you going to do about these women in their leashes that can just explode anything? You can't get away from it. So he's like, no. And she pulls out the rings that now no one's seen, or Min hasn't seen it before. And there's two rings on there. One, obviously, Lan's ring. And the other one is her serpent ring. And he's like, no, put it away real quick. Like, no, don't let anyone see that. The common room is quite empty, but I mean, they're looking around, suspect, being very, very, very cautious. And Nynaeve's basically, you won't have a problem to sail. We've got 4 women that can help you. Obviously, her lying. He thinks everything she says is truth. He can't tell the difference whether she's unaccepted or a full Aes Sedai. Mm-hmm. So he's like, yep, no, all good. He'll be ready to sail in the next 2-3 days. From there they sort of, cool, plans made, and they take Min to their little shack. Then says, do you like fish? I hope you like fish.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just the plan that they're going to go. Like, this is the next first stage. How are they going to get away? They thought about horses, thought about riding, but now the idea of sailing that Min got is a lot better. And the one thing, when Min saw Nynaeve, she saw her with a ring above her head in one of her sort of viewings.
She saw Lan's ring.
Lan's ring, yeah. And she didn't know what it was, but when she pulled out the ring and she saw the ring, she's like, There's something there. Yeah, no, there's not much else to take from that.
No, they're setting up the escape route for their heist.
That's it. It's the heist con.
Yeah, planning phase. Aptly in the chapter called A Plan.
The plan. A plan.
Yes.
Well, yep, a plan is being made.
In my previous readings, I remember Baal Damane being sort of sprinkled in very lightly throughout the story. But I'm enjoying the frequency with which we are seeing him and dealing with him in at least these first 2 books.
Absolutely. And plus, he's got such a voice in my head now that I'm just like, he's always good when he's around.
Yeah. I'm just so stoked. Like when Elaine and Nynaeve call Min over, and she's so excited to see them. She's so upset by Egwene. I am just heartened by the fact, and I think I've actually said this in a previous episode, by just how quickly Min has become really attached to our girls. Like they seem to have a real bond. Even Elaine, who I still see as like an outsider, an interloper. Egwene and Nynaeve are Two Rivers, Eamon's Fielders. They've got some solid allies in Min, with a unique ability in Min, and then in Elaine with another potent channeler and heir to the throne of Andor. Like cool. Also, be our buddy. Great. Now they're just like this awesome little team of friends that do genuinely seem to be invested in each other, which is, it makes me happy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also just a good feeling to know that finally they found each other. There's this cool, awesome. All right, tell us everything about the inside. Let's get this plan going. And Nynaeve is balls to the wall. Like,
yes,
there's nothing that's going to stop me. Oh, all right, I'll take the negotiations. And she's sort of like Aes Sedai authority. Like, this is what's going to happen. This is how we're going to help you. You're going to do that. And like, fake it till you make it attitude.
Yeah. I love, like, Nynaeve is already like she hates the Aes Sedai and their like duplicitous nature, and then she pulls the most classic Aes Sedai trick of all. She shows Baal Damane the ring. She doesn't say that she's Aes Sedai. She just asks him, "Do you know what this means?" And he says yes.
Yeah.
And, job done. He thinks I'm Aes Sedai. Cool.
I didn't lie.
No.
A bending of the truth.
She doesn't even need the oath rod.
No. Nynaeve really in these couple chapters as well just does take the lead. Hey, like, I mean, she's the oldest, but not by a lot. But she's certainly the most gung ho.
Oh, totally.
I rolled my eyes at Elaine. Oh, I wish Rand was here. He would just use his sword. Like, fuck off, Elaine. I literally drew 2 eyes rolling in my notes. What about you, Joe? Anything else stand out to you there?
No, you guys pretty much covered it. They're chatting to Baal. It's good to see Baal again. That's the highlight of the chapter for me.
And I'm just glad that they have a plan.
Yeah.
It seems like they're not just sitting around waiting for something to happen to them. They've got an idea, and this must have been like the missing piece, the escape.
Look at how intricate this happened. Like, this was how many days they've been there? A couple of days. Call it 4 or 5 or whatever. Maybe
they've been there weeks.
Nah, not weeks. I wouldn't say weeks.
Yes, they've been weeks.
I think so.
All right. They've been there weeks, but they are fully undercover.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are in rags. A poor Elena. I can't imagine her feeling like how she's dressed and coming from a life of such privilege.
I wonder how quickly the shine of adventure like rubbed off.
Well, maybe the fact that she's not scrubbing pots has now gotten her to really cement in, like, I can do anything, but I don't have to scrub a pot. So I'm going to keep on my hatred of scrubbing
your anti-pot scrubbing agenda. Keep pushing that agenda.
It's a t-shirt idea. We don't scrub pots.
Okay, should we push on?
Yep.
Okay, Jody, are you ready for chapter 44? 5 will ride forth.
Oh, dude. What a chapter. Name. The chapter's pretty meh. No, I'm joking.
You got me. You totally got me.
Totally. No, I'm joking. Lots of shit happens, yes. Let's get into it. All right. Chapter 44. We join up with Perrin, Matt, and Huron, who are out scouting the villages there in Falme. They've got a camp set up with all the other Shinarans and Varen and Rand. Everybody's waiting, so they're taking turns to go out and investigate the area. And this time, it's those three. They're looking for Fane. Obviously, they're trying to find his trail. So they're in disguise. They're dressed in the clothes that they've plundered in previous abandoned villages. Because as they've been searching, they found all these abandoned villages. People are just like, "Fuck this shit! I'm out of here." These Sean-Chan are not good for us. So
This sucks.
This sucks. I'm leaving. Cheers.
I'm out.
The village that they're in now is not abandoned, but it is in the process of being abandoned. People are like loading up wagons, and they're like, "No, fuck this shit. They're out of here." People are saying goodbye. Some are staying, whatever. And again, there's this big blackened circle in the middle of the village green. And this is what I mentioned the last time. I think I read it in this chapter, actually.
Yeah.
Is that it turns out that the Sean-Chan had rounded up the whole village council and their families and just burnt them to death, I suppose, with the Damane, I assume, and just burnt the shit out of them, with the one power.
Yeah.
And that's it. Now, swear your oaths or join that big blackened pile of ex-flesh.
Yeah, like I got the sense that they didn't even give the village leaders the option. They just died, and then everyone else was given the option to follow them or follow them.
Yeah, exactly. And I know what you mean exactly. So, yeah, I don't think there was any negotiation. Look, this is who we are. We've come to give you another way of life. No. None of that. Just death.
It's not a good way of life.
Yeah, and Huron anyway standing there and he's smelling it and he's going like, this is disgusting. It's weeks old, but the amount of violence that took place here is incredible because it still stinks to high heaven and no one's touched it. No one's tried to clean up the green or anything. They just leave it and give it a wide berth. So anyway, just then there's a commotion and the White Cloaks start trotting into town and Perrin's like, oh, fuck. I can't stay here and watch these guys. I mean, he has a little bit of a history with them, so the three of them leg it as quick as they can, because White Cloaks are the last thing they need. So I suppose White Cloaks are always the last thing you need. So as they make it, and they skedaddle out of the town and they make it up to some woods, some cover in the woods around the town. And then that's when the first time they stop and just to check that they haven't been followed. And Perrin reaches out to the wolves to ask for their help. And I thought this was very cool, like him starting to accept who he is again and use this tool because it's an amazing tool. But later on, he doesn't again. He's all up and down. We'll get there. So the wolves are astonished that he can speak with them because they had heard again, like these are different wolves now. They'd heard before that, oh, there are some two legs who can speak to us. And this is one of them. So there are some lengthy introductions. Apparently, wolves are sticklers for formalities and, their names are feelings and emotions and situations. But they have, thank you. I'll get it the first time, next time. All right. But they have a look around, the wolves, like go down a little bit and they have a look around and they confirm, like, look, no one's following you. You're safe. So, all right, sweet. And off they head back to the camp. Because now they found Fane's trail. By the way, I didn't mention that in the chapter. They found the trail. So that's why they're leaving. They go, not just the White Cloaks. They got the trail and they had to get out of there because of the White Cloaks. All right. So then we switch in this.
Is this where Euron says that Fane's trail is so grotesque that even though it has been such a long time since he's passed through there, he can still smell it?
Yeah. Basically. It's on top of that burning circle in the village green smell as well.
Yes. Because this is months later, right?
Yeah.
Fane came through there 4 months before. Or something.
Yeah. 3 or 4 months it's been. You can still smell him. So, there's no problem following Fane. We then switch to the point of view of the White Cloaks as they're coming into town. And it's Joffrey Bornhold and Baia. Good old Bornhold. The only likable White Cloak in existence.
I'm really becoming a bit of a fan.
Yeah, well, don't get too attached.
Don't be swayed.
I want to be in the light.
You are in the light, Billy. Don't say shit like that. They'll come for you. So, Bornhold did notice Perrin. He noticed some broad-shouldered lad slinking behind some houses as he left. But he mentions that later. So he's leading a legion of White Cloaks. And they're looking for supplies and they've had some skirmishes with the Sean-Chan. Like he's taken the fight to them. He didn't want to do what the questioners said. So he's actually left some of his troops spread out all over, where was it? Falme or Tarabon? Almouth Plain, that's right. So, he's got all the troops. Some of the troops he's left behind to give the questioners like the this is, the idea that he hasn't actually left. They're just very, very spread out. But he's taken the bulk of his legion, 1,000 men, and he's decided to take the fight to the Shawnshan. So he's in this village resupplying and getting ready for their attack. But there's nothing there. There's no supplies. Everyone's leaving. Everyone's cowed, and this is not the place. And they've had a few skirmishes, like I said, and they have proven to be quite effective. The Shawnshan were expecting the same old rabble that could be routed easily, but this is a military force, so these guys know what they're doing. Still, they lose.
They killed 2 Damane.
Yes, losing 50 men to do that, but they did it. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's impressive.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. So he tells Child Buyer that, I also call him Child Buyer now for some reason, that he won't be participating in this attack, and that he must watch and take messages to his son Dane to tell him how his father dies. So he's already at this point now where he knows he's not going to survive it. None of us are going to survive this next encounter. So he is a good general. Like he can, he doesn't live in a dream world. He knows how to get everything planned properly. And also he tells him to go to Pedro Nile and tell them how the questioners had used them. And also that the Aes Sedai now openly fight for the Shawnshan. So now they've seen the Damane fighting, and to the layman, I assume that anybody would think that a woman using the one power is Aes Sedai. You don't know any other women like that. So
I mean, yeah, like try harder, Jeff from Bornhold. I mean, you've been in the game for long enough. The fact that I've got a note here that I'm annoyed by the fact that they don't make a distinction between the Aes Sedai and the Shawnshan channelers.
Yeah, but look, what do you expect? To them, they're all just witches. They're all just witches.
Of course. It's just disappointing.
Yes, I know. I thought better of Joffrin, but
yes,
burn the witch. Yes.
He's obviously got more than a couple of brain cells to rub together. He's very, very sharp in a lot of ways, and then just has this massive blind spot in his complete hatred of anyone that can channel.
Well, there is his white cloakiness coming out there. His true white cloakiness. With Perrin, for example, when he caught Perrin and Egwene, he was very skeptical that they were dark friends. He still doesn't believe it. He can assess the situation, but he sees a woman channeling. That's it. Witch, Aes Sedai. So much for their lofty oaths. Like if we meet them in battle, they're gonna fuck us up. So anyway, that's what's happening. So that's a pity. He also mentions to Buyer about seeing Perrin, and even remembers his name. And he asks Buyer, like, remember that guy we caught, that blacksmith? And Buyer still remembers him.
Said he was a blacksmith. Yeah.
Yes. Perrin from the Two Rivers. He still remembers his name, where he's from, because, I mean, this comes up later. This hatred that Buyer carries is, you can smell the madness on him later on, even. This reminded me of Shire Baggins. Perrin, Two Rivers. Yeah. So he's uncertain.
Doesn't Buyer also have like sunken eyes and
totally
like he has a weird friggish face? Yeah.
He's got this hatred. So but Bornhold is still uncertain that if Perrin is a dark friend or in cahoots with the Shawnshan or anything like that. So it's possible. A lot of things are possible. So he decides, like, look, if he's seen us, maybe he's reporting back. Maybe he works for the Shawnshan now. Who knows what's going on? So in order to maintain that element of surprise, they decide, like, look, we're attacking now. We're going to attack the Shawnshan. We're going to march into Falme and just sort the shit out before we lose this element of surprise. But however, obviously the Shawnshan already know about them, because as this part of the chapter ends, we pan up to the sky and there's a large winged shape that has been circling above them this entire time. And I always thought, like, man, how could they not notice that? But I mean, why would they ever look up? Nothing flies. Like, there's no reason for them to ever be looking up for spy planes or anything. So they're not used to it. But they'll get used to it soon enough, I imagine.
Well, yeah.
Times are changing,
until
boys.
They die.
Times are changing.
Until they die. So yeah, we know that the Raken above there, or Raken, or however you want to pronounce it, have spotted them and probably reporting back. So we jump back now to the camp where the Shanarans and Rand and everybody is. And Rand is there practicing his forms. He's not really doing very well. He's not killing it because he doesn't want to embrace the void and attract Saladin and start killing everyone around him. So he's not in the void. So his forms are a little bit off and his balance is a bit off. And Ingtar's there watching him and Varen's there. And they're all just waiting there for Merrin, for Perrin, Matt, and Huron to get back. Rand's busy practicing heron wading in the rushes, which is important, people. Remember that. And Ingtar points out to him in some deep foreshadowing moment that it is a worthless form because it leaves you open to attack. But he's like, no, I'm doing this for balance, only for balance. Lan said I must practice it for balance. Because, I mean, fuck you, Ingtar. Lan said I must do it, so Lan wins.
Yeah.
He's a better man than everyone, as Vili pointed out.
Is it in the very first chapter of this book where Lan also tells Rand about sheathing the sword?
Yes. Yeah.
So there is like this space of virtually the entire book between those two bits of information, but the two of them together set up the finale.
Don't spoil it, Mo. Yeah. So yeah, just then Matt and Perrin and Huron return, and they've got Fane's trail, obviously. But, of course, they can't all go because the White Cloaks are roaming all over the place. The Sean-Chan wouldn't care about a few people coming in and out of Falme, apparently. But, I mean, they're going to notice a little mini army of Northmen. So they decide, like, look, they've got to make a small party. Probably just a thief, a mage, a warrior, an archer, something like that. And Varen has just the number in mind. What was the title of this chapter again? 5 will ride forth.
5 ride forth.
Yeah.
Now was that in the written on the walls in the dungeon, or was it part of the Carathian cycle? Where did that line come from?
It's from the Carathian cycle. Van Dien actually says that line in that Watchers chapter.
All right.
She's talking to Moraine in the study. I went back and I read it, and she says it. 5 will ride forth, only 4 will
where does
return.
Varen hear it? How does Varen
It's in the
know?
Carathian cycle, and I mean, the Browns do know a great many things, Joe.
They do know a great many things. My apologies.
Including the
Browns.
Carathian cycle.
Yes, I'm sure they do. All right.
You'd hope they do.
So
that's their job.
Yeah. So she's been
Varen
drawing.
probably knows both prophecies.
Oh yeah, dude. Now we're going deep. So she's been drawing in the dirt. She's been drawing this wheel with these 5 spokes. So she's known for a long time that this is probably the point where this 5 ride forth thing comes in. So they decide on Rand, Matt, and Perrin. Obviously, the 3 to Varen. Matt, because he can sense the dagger as well. Even though he's looking like shit, you probably wouldn't be your first pick.
Pin your hopes on the sickling.
That gaunt, white-faced dude. You got to watch out for him.
With a penchant for straying from the plan. Fucking shit up.
Which he does. But actually saves them all. But anyway. Huron, because he can smell. Fane, so they're going to need him. And Ingtar, since he's like the leader of the Shanarans. They can't send Varen. Because there are reasons, like, you have to get 5 people, but you can't just randomly choose 5. There's reasons that Varen can't go, because she can channel and they'll sense her in there. So it's not him. Loyal, I mean, someone's going to notice him, you know?
Yeah, he's a pretty noticeable guy.
To borrow a line from Snatch, he's not inconspicuous, no, is he?
No, he's not. Yes, so we can't take him, although he's very keen. Sorry, dude, not you. So that's it. They have their 5 that will ride forth. So we have, what was it? Just to recap: Rand, Matt, Perrin, Huron, and Ingtar. And that's, and then they head off to the town, and that's where we end this chapter. So again, pieces getting put into place, and the shit is about to hit the fan, I think, in Moritz's chapter.
Ooh, big time.
All right.
It's going. Fuses
But
lit.
just before they ride off, Rand notices Varen like scratching the dirt, and when Rand walks over to see what she was scratching, she's rubbed out one of the spokes of the 5-spoked wheel that she was drawing in the dirt, which fills him with dread. And in the Carathian cycle, obviously it says 5 will ride forth, but only 4 will return.
Yes.
And I just thought Ingtar would be so chuffed to know that he was referred to, even indirectly, in the prophecy of the dragon.
Yes.
Yep.
I never thought of that, but yeah.
That's cool for him.
His little redemption arc is amazing.
Brew, so good.
And I like that it's over in book 2. It's not like a 10-book arc.
Bornold confirms here again that Perrin killed 2 White Cloaks.
Yes.
When he
Look,
thinks about it.
for me, that's already confirmed.
Yeah. But he's sharp, eh? Because, I mean, he only sees, I think he mentions the way the person carried themselves. Like, he didn't necessarily even
Broad
see
shoulders
his
that he
face
saw,
completely. Maybe
and-
just,
No.
just the profile and how he carried himself. He's like, I know that guy.
Yes.
That's sharp.
And like through the village, as this guy's darting behind a building, like just a glimpse.
Yeah. Varen seems to be relishing watching the pattern or the pattern play out, the prophecy, drawing the wheel in the sand. I think there's a description of like the expression on her face as well. She's almost like, like the scholar side of her is like, yes, it's all happening, just like in the prophecy, which is scary and cool. Like Varen she's operating on a level that no one is even aware of exists.
Yes, I mean, yeah, if you really think about that now, knowing what we know, playing both sides, knowing about... she's there on Falme as it's about to happen. She must think, man, I'm one lucky
She
brown.
is playing the most dangerous game of anyone in the series. Like, she is threading the needle.
Yeah, but like even in that conversation where she says that she can't go into and help them because if the minute she channels, she'll be a target. But a man, on the other hand,
Oh, she mentions that as well.
Yeah,
Yes, she
and
says
Ingtar's
it,
like,
yeah.
we've got enough on our plate.
Why would you even say
to
that?
worry about? Like, why are you even saying that? But the boys know what she means. Like,
Yeah.
yep, you're gonna have to go. It's this is the time for you to start making use of this unique ability you have.
Shoo-wee. Oh, so good. Okay, should we move along?
Let's do it.
We can.
Chapter 45 is called Blade Master. my first note is, whoa, Blade Master. That arrived quickly.
Yes.
Having read the book and knowing what that means, obviously that is the showdown between Rand and Lord Turak. They've gone very quickly from like outside of town to like showdown with the Blade Master.
Yes, exactly.
And I mean, part of that we'll get to it through this chapter summary is Ingtar just going, let's go, go. It's time. The horn's here. Let's go. So let's get into that. It's early dawn in Falme, and we join Nynaeve, Min, and Elaine as they are setting up an ambush. A fucking ambush of Seanchan, Suldam, and Damane in the streets of a Seanchan hotbed.
Yes.
These three, or one accepted and two novices. Or no, a novice and a girl.
Some random chick.
Not bringing anything to the party in terms of offensive. But they're setting up an ambush. And this is just like the balls out plan that Nynaeve would come up with as well, right? So they see a Suldam and a Damane approach, sort of, the first ones that they can see in the street. Like, there's very few people moving around in the streets. And Nynaeve gathers all her anger about the leashed ones, how they treated Egwene, how the Suldam enforced their will, and she imagines that white blossom opening on the black thorny branch, and Saidar fills her. And I remember that imagery from her accepted test in that third arch. She thinks of the thorny branches with the white blossoms on them, and then gets the thorns like stuck in her hands and stuff. But that's obviously, at that time we said, I think this is how she does it all the time, because she is the thorny branch, blah blah blah. And here we have it. Yeah, she's actively using it, like choosing to conjure that image rather than the beautiful images suggested by the Aes Sedai. She's got these thorny branches. So anyway, the Suldam immediately gives a start, and the Damane's mouth falls open. Initially, I thought that this is maybe because Nynaeve is like channeling a lot, or she's drawn a lot of the source. Maybe she's just so unpracticed that she's taken on a lot of the power, but she only channels a very, very small trickle of it to loosen the catch on the Adam of the Damane's necklace. And I love the phrase that was used here. It was only a trickle of the power, but she cracked it, a whip snapping a dust mote out of the air.
Yes.
It's like so precise, right? And at a distance, and with the power, and knowing that these people are going to come down on them, so she's got no room for fucking up.
Ooh.
A whip cracking a dust mote out of the air, and she gets it, and the necklace falls off. So the Damane immediately punches the Suldam in the face and runs off.
Well,
You
they're
go,
getting
girl.
their comings.
the girls still try and shout something after, like, no, we're here to help, and they run off. I think Elaine even shouts, "Good for you." But they so then, I mean, they don't hesitate much more than that. They quickly pull this sack that they brought with them over the Sildam and drag it down an alley into an empty shack. And they take the bracelet off the Sildam and they get ready to put the collar on Elaine, as they had discussed. But Nynaeve, in a snap decision, decides to put the collar on the Sildam instead. So when she does it and she puts the bracelet on her own arm, she instantly becomes aware of the Sildam through the Adam, and she tests out its capabilities with immediate success. And the Sildam is horrified. And Min even says that this shouldn't work that way. But we, as rereaders, know that it's because this Sildam can also channel, and they cover this later when they talk to Egwene about it. So then Nynaeve dresses up in the Sildam's clothes. A little bit too much emphasis about the size of the bosom and the weakness or the thinness around the hips. I mean, that's unnecessary. It didn't fit.
This is Jordan, bro.
We get it, dude. Okay.
Yeah.
So Nynaeve puts on the Sildam dress, and like, while it is sort of ill-fitting, they figure they'll get away with it for the short time that they really need it, and they put a dress that they had actually like dyed grey, or bleached grey to resemble a Damane dress, to put on the Sildam. We find out the Sildam's name is Seta. I wouldn't have really taken note of this except for the fact that Seta and Rena, who we've also met, Egwene's quote-unquote owner, they crop up in the story a whole bunch of times down the line, which I won't get into here, but later when they're together, I'll bring it up again. So the Sildam nervously just asks where they're going, and Nynaeve says, into the lion's den, and they set out from the shed. So then we cut to Damane and his 2IC Yaren, and they're waiting on the deck of the spray for the girls to arrive. Damane instructs Yaren to make sure there's an axe at every mooring line so they can quickly cut ties to make a run for it. But they will only run if the girls make it there. Then this is like a heist movie, right? Now we cut to Rand. It's like everyone prepping and setting up. And so we cut to Rand arriving in Falme. Also in the early morning, Ingtar rode ahead, and then Huron, then Rand with Matt and Perrin coming behind, with all of them like spaced out so it doesn't look like they're a group of 5 coming into the town together, but they all sort of meet up in town eventually. And Huron starts trying to follow Fane's trail. But it's everywhere. And Huron leads them like crisscrossing the whole town. Fane had obviously moved around a lot there, so they're moving, without any clear sense of where he should be right now, because his stench is obviously so prevalent. Eventually, they pass some Damane on the way, and eventually they round a corner where they see then a bunch of soldiers and a couple of Grolms stationed outside this house, which we know is probably Turak's house, from descriptions we've read when Pat and Fane arrived there. But they think, okay, maybe this is something that we should be investigating. Huron confirms that Fane has been there a lot, and Rand suggests that they stake the place out, But this is where Ingtar goes, no, the Horn is right here. We got to go. So Ingtar knows, obviously, that his salvation is around the corner, and he convinces them to sneak around to the back garden, which is through a very, very narrow alley, and they get to the back wall. Ingtar just jumps up, sort of like peeks over the wall, and he sees only one guard. So immediately he goes, okay, you guys count to 50 and then follow me. And he climbs over the wall and jumps into the garden. Really just going for it, eh? Like, he is almost rabid with his desire to get the Horn, as we know, to sort of, signal his salvation.
And we'll talk about that. My wife disagrees. Absolutely. She brought it up listening to the last podcast.
Really?
Yes. That's his dark friend motivation. He's not trying to find the Horn to redeem himself. He's doing it because that's what he was told to do at the Dark Friend Social. It's only later on now that he decides, like, I can't go through with this. And that's when I'll leave it to you.
Put a pin in that one, Joe. That's a big one.
That's a big one.
Okay. So anyway, so the guys do that. They count to 50 and they jump over the wall. And when they get into the garden, they look around and they can't see Ingtar anywhere. And then they notice him right up against the wall of the house itself. So they scamper over there and they ask him what he did with the guard. And he said he hid him over there under a bush. He made some comment about the guard being sort of brash or foolhardy or something. And Rand's like, the guard was? Yeah, you are jumping into a Sean Chan stronghold through the back garden. But anyway, so they draw weapons and they actually enter the house, trying to avoid the kitchens where they can hear a lot of bustling around. There's a servant that comes into the hallway that, luckily turns the other way and doesn't see them. And they look around and they see these are obviously servants' corridors and stuff like you see in old manor houses and stuff. It's not where the lords would ever be.
As you see in old manor houses. Yes, I've spent many times in the servants' quarters of old manor houses.
Oh, really? Okay, because
Yes.
I never go to the servants' quarters. So Matt points them towards like a narrow little staircase, saying he can sense the dagger. It's up that way. So they rush up the stairway. And they go through a set of sliding doors into what we know is Turak's sort of collection room. And bingo, there's the horn up on a pedestal with the dagger also right there. And Matt grabs both of them, sort of like, woo, we got him! Yay!
He grabs them like he would grab poker chips off a table after winning.
Or a badger. So Matt's holding the horn, but Ingtar is sort of like, fixated on it and sort of reading the script and tracing it with his finger. And he says, it is the horn, quote unquote, the horn. By the light it is, I am saved. So
Saved
come back to
from
that.
What? Because he's found now that the dark friends are not going to kill him.
We'll get there.
Okay.
So while Matt, I was about to say, is capering around with the dagger and the horn, singing a song, Huron looks out the front window. Obviously, they've gone through the house now. They came in the back door. They moved through the servants' quarters, up the stairs, and then toward the front of the house. So the windows in the front of the room look out at the street with all the guards and the Grom stationed in it. And Huron is looking out there to see if those guards have been alerted at all, and they don't seem to be. And when Rand joins him at the window, he can see into the walled gardens of the houses across the street. And he sees a girl sitting there that he is convinced is Egwene. And we know it is. But she's led away by a Sildam or by someone else while he's there. And even Perrin comes over to take a look, and he doesn't see anything. And I think Rand admits in his inner monologue as well that he couldn't make out the face, but he just knew. Like, he looked at that person and he knew that was Egwene. It's not like he could make out her face and see that is definitely her. A lot of that sort of stuff going on, all the threads tugging at various people and them sensing Rand, the girls also chasing down Rand. A lot of that in these chapters. But as he tells the others that he thinks it's Egwene and that he needs to do something, someone enters the room and addresses them directly. And it is Turak with two servants, or two attendants, I should say, one cradling a sheathed sword, and then screens at either end of the room at other exits topple down, revealing a handful of soldiers in those entrances as well, blocking those exits, or crowding them at least. So Turak says that he expected to see Fane. He's been suspicious of Fane since Yuan died. Yuan being his big blonde little servant man. He's
big blonde little servant man.
His big blonde little servant man. That Fane had said after Yuan had smacked him, Fane said, "Okay, I know how you're going to die," and we don't see that. Like, we never told how he died. Yeah, bloodthirsty of us, right? Like, I wanted to see how this man died.
Yes,
at the hands of this evil creature. But yeah, we never saw his death. Turak takes the sword from his attendant and then just says that he'll enjoy killing one or two of them before making the others explain who they are. And without a signal from Turak himself, one of the soldiers approaches Matt to take the horn from him. But Matt slashes his hand with the ruby dagger. Ooh. And the guy just wails in pain, and his hand starts blackening where the cut was made. And then you see him sort of like look at his arm, and then the rest of his arm, and then his shoulder, and he's freaking out.
And falling to dust or just shriveling up?
No, he's bloating and going black. So when he falls to the ground, he's lying there like screaming and kicking. And eventually his face has gone black and his eyes are bulging. And like the thing that I think eventually kills him is that his tongue swells up and actually chokes him to death. And when he's lying there, when he's dead, he's black and bloated. And Rand says or thinks that he looks like he would explode, like at the touch, like he's filled with something and his skin is all taut and blackened. And so, I mean, it's gross. It's real, and everyone is aghast. Everyone is looking at this going, what? What the
Don't fuck with Matt with that dagger.
Including Turak.
Yeah.
But the first one to act is Ingtar. Ingtar jumps over the corpse and he runs at the soldiers and shouts, "Follow me." So Huron joins him, and the soldiers that they charged actually like fall back. They didn't expect this dude to come at them. And obviously, I mean, being Shinarans, they're also not your average swordsman. These guys grow up with swords in their beds.
Yeah, that's they got a little bit complacent being up there in Tome and Head Hippie Hand.
They definitely did. They definitely did. And more on that in a minute. So the other soldiers at the other end of the room, they sort of come at Matt and Perrin, but Perrin is sort of swinging his axe around, but they're even more wary of Matt flailing this dagger around that can, have this kind of effect from a cut on the hand. It's not even like a vital part of the body or anything, just anywhere on you, and this is your fate. So they are very, very cautious of him. And while they're all distracted, it leaves Rand facing Turak himself. The two attendants of Turak's obviously not doing anything. They're literally just standing there. And Turak says, "I suspected it would come to you and me, obviously because of the heron mark on Rand's blade." And he comments on Rand's age and says, "Let's see what it takes to earn a heron on this side of the ocean."
Yes. So that's come across with him.
I love that line. I love that line.
Yes, me too, because I think it's relevant to the end of this chapter. I'm putting lots of pins and lots of things there, but I promise that's because I know I'm going to be talking about them. And it's only then that Rand notices that Turak also has a heron on his blade. Fuck.
Yeah, that's off.
He's going to get found out. This is not some dumb Trolloc in the dark, So Rand discards his coat to get ready for combat, but he resists still the urge to assume the void, fearing that Saidin is going to be waiting for him there. A common theme. Turak advances and attacks, just pushing Rand back and making him just defend the whole time. And Rand takes a small cut under his eye that immediately starts bleeding. And after a number of attacks, Turak just looks disappointed. And he asks Rand, "Where did you find that blade, boy?" Or, if they really awarded it so easily on this side of the ocean. Yeah, you eat your words, Turak.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just says, "No matter, prepare to die." And that's when Rand realizes, okay, I got to do something. And he assumes the void. But he refuses the call of Saidin, so he's not channeling or anything, but he is one with everything, as we know, the void, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And as Turak is attacking, the look of disappointment gives way to surprise. And then concentration.
Yes.
It's like that all of a sudden it's been amped up.
Shit's getting real.
The fight went from
Okay.
2.5. I'm just sussing you out to, all right, this is me at 8.5 going 9, going 10.
Exactly. So Turak is pressing harder and harder. Like he's just attacking. And Rand seems to be more than comfortable to just deflect the stuff. But then Rand realizes, look, the longer this fight goes on, the worse my chances are. I need to do something, and I need to do something now. He's also thinking, obviously, about Egwene, and the others are still fighting. He can't be dancing around with this Sean Chan dandy. He needs to put a stop to this. So Rand attacks a barrage that Turak himself can only defend against. And I think I don't know if the whole barrage or the move is called Boar Rushes Down the Mountain, but it's it's a full scale attack.
10-hit combo
across the length of the room. So he's pushing Turak all the way back across the length of the room, and then suddenly switches to the river undercuts the bank. So he's down on one knee, slashing across, and then he hears two sounds as Turak drops to the ground, and he looks around, and he's dead already. Now, let's talk about this. Very, very
I was
cool,
expecting
obviously.
us to actually just go over oh, job done, let's move on.
Yes, next chapter, please.
So, two sounds. Did he just fall to his knees and then his body fell down? Or did Rand separate two pieces of Turak from each other?
Yes.
I would like to believe the latter, but I think it's his sword dropping out of his hand and then him falling down. I mean, it could be a number of anything. That's what I thought initially, but I'm getting a whole, Star Wars. What was his name? Come on, Star Wars fans. No one's going to help me? Never mind.
All you said is Star Wars. You mean like the being cut in half?
Yeah, Obi-Wan chopping Darth Maul in half. That's it.
Right.
Yeah. Is that what you're suggesting? Like he cut him in half?
He cut him in half. He went down on one knee. He played, and to put this into really like AB de Villiers, getting down on one knee,
Mr. 360.
turned that body and just sent it for a 6, except he sent that blade through the center of his gut. And he toppled over in 2 equal heavy balls, like bleh.
Now, I will say to our listeners that are not familiar with A.B. de Villiers or even the sport of cricket, but that is what Villiers is making reference to. See, from the picture that is conjured when Rand looks back, he doesn't say anything about... I mean, if you cut someone in half, there's going to be blood everywhere. He doesn't make any remark about that. In my youthful exuberance reading the story many, many moons ago, I did think that Rand either cut him in half or cut off his head or cut off a limb or something. He severed something from something else, because why else would you make the comment that he heard 2 sounds? It seems like a sort of throwaway thing. But now I'm winding that back a little bit in my older, more mature age, and thinking it was just 2 things hitting the ground. So Joe, like you said, either the sword hitting the ground and then Turak, or him dropping down to his knees, like sort of like, he's dead immediately, but in the process of dying, he doesn't just crumple, he falls down first and then his body slumps.
Look, I mean,
no way of knowing.
I think the lack of reaction is not the issue here, because if he's in the void, he wouldn't react anyway. He's still
True.
in that zone. He wouldn't, even if he was chopped him into 10 pieces, he'd just walk away. But yeah, I don't know. Everyone believe, whatever you want to believe.
There's room here to do exactly that, because it's never referenced again. So if you want to believe that he cut him through the waist, I mean, it is River undercuts the bank. I don't think it's his head that he cut off, because he's down on one knee, specifically gone low for a low attack. So if he has like chopped him in half, which is fucking rough, it is through like, the midriff or like across the top of the hips or something.
If you listen to it and you analyze that full push, it was all of a sudden on the offensive, and he pushed him back the whole way, and Turak's face was kind of, oh dear, so he's blocking blows. So he probably had his sword up quite high, and he had a big scimitar type blade, which would be heavy. And in one of that big moves coming from the top, maybe, what is the heron rushing the waves or something, or a moon undercuts the bank, or he had his sword up high and he had his whole midriff open, and Rand just said, right, drop to one knee, I will give you a new belly button. Well, that's maybe why it's called River Undercuts the Bank, because there's a river of blood after you do that move.
There you go.
Rand comments on the forms that Turak is using, saying that they're not the same, but they are similar. So, maybe Rand noticed in the fight that, the fighting style of a scimitar would be different. So maybe it is more flashy and loopy and maybe up high. Maybe that's something Rand noticed during the fight. Who knows? Bottom line, it was successful, and he went down on one knee. What is also interesting is that if Rand was down on one knee and slashing at Turak, who would have been in front of him because he's fighting the guy in front of him, why would he not see him head on anymore?
Because he knew he hit it. The minute he hit him, he went through with it. He turned his shoulders and he went, where's the next fight coming from behind?
Okay.
It's
done.
He spun around. Like it's just job done. Spun around, felt the blade go in, sever the spinal cord, separate his lunch from his breakfast, and then
trim the kidneys.
Slice the liver. That's fodder for me. That's done.
Okay, now Turak, legit blade master, obviously earned that blade. Rand,
legit dragon reborn,
training for a little while, not really very good, even in his practice in front of Ingtar. Assumes the void. This makes all the difference. Suddenly, Rand is an unstoppable killing machine. Someone else in the story has previously made, I think it was even Celine, about made a comment about how assuming the oneness is something that Blade Masters do. Rand in this moment is not doing anything that Turek could have been doing. Maybe he didn't, but he should have. Maybe Turek was, maybe let his guard down because Rand was, playing possum in the beginning. I thought that, I mean, obviously in the moment, this is your guy, this is Rand, we're in his head most of the story. This is the guy we want to win. He beats him because he's assumed the void. But in the cold light of day, does Rand really deserve that? I mean, how good is Rand really? Turek is a legit Blade Master, and Rand has only been training for a little while. Is he drawing on Lews Theron's past?
I'm probably going to think yes, that does play in sort of a bit.
It's a bit of a get out of jail free card, isn't it? Because Lan has never commented on it. Like, "Ooh, you're good for your level of training."
Turek did not even carry his own sword into this fight. Come on, he's been so lordly, it's perving over his Quentia collection.
You're coming up to my final point that I wanted to talk on.
That's that he was a Blade Master. He got into this very high position of collecting wealth and being the opposite of what Geoffram Bornald is as a high person. He's still a general. He's still a fighter. Or even Gareth from...
Yes.
Like he's a legit warrior. And
exactly.
I probably, if you think about it, Ingtar could probably have sunk him.
Probably. And this is exactly how I've sort of now, after all of that internal sort of, toing and froing about how did Rand really manage to do this, what I've settled on myself is the fact that because Turek is of the blood, he's not in any battles. He's not fighting any real fights. If he's fighting anyone, it's probably some kind of duel or like some kind of, lord versus lord, everyone has their swords carried in for them. Everyone maintains their swords for them, that sort of thing. So when Turek makes the comment about, let's see what it takes to earn the blade on this side of the ocean, what he is unwittingly alluding to is that on this side of the ocean, it's actually harder to get the Heron Mark blade and not easier like he assumed. Because that is the only way that I can justify in my own mind that Rand, this sheep herder who's had a bit of training, can kill a blade master who is older than he is and obviously earned the blade in a legitimate way. There's only two ways you can earn a blade, and that a Heron Mark blade, and that is either by killing a blade master or by doing a fight in front of 5 other blade masters who have to unanimously decide that you are worthy of the blade.
Maybe that's how he got his blade, Turek. He just did it in front of
other
other
blade
lords.
Masters in Shawnchan, exactly.
Yeah.
So it is, in my mind, probably cheaper, quote unquote, to get the Heron on the Shawnchan side of the ocean.
I think it's far cheaper to get it there, especially if you're in that high positions. Like no one's going to question, "Oh no, Lord Turek, you slayed that peasant. Oh, you deserve the blade."
Which just makes his death even more tasty, juicy. Right? Like, you fucking
see now.
asshole.
Do you see now how it is actually fitting that he was cut in half, and it was the 2 parts of his body falling into different angles? I mean, come now, and you like seriously, a man and a man who is a sword wielding man does not have long fingernails. That stuff gets in the way.
When Rand sees his fingernails, he wonders how he can hold the blade. And also, like there's a lot of comments about Rand, or noticing warders look like the sword belongs on them. Like it becomes a part of how they move and that sort of thing. And Turek doesn't even carry his own sword.
Yeah.
How often does he have it in his hands?
Exactly. And Rand walking in to meet Morghese in the other world.
Gareth Bryan
says that sword belongs on him. He's already walking with that sword as if it's a part of his body. It's always, since he's been given that sword, it has not left him. Yeah. So, I mean, he is
until a couple chapters from now.
Yep. Well, there's a new one coming. It's a plot twist. A better one.
Okay, anyway, that's not the end of this chapter.
All right.
But I did want to pause there and talk about this fight, because this is like all my inner monologue. Like while I'm reading it this time around, I'm like, how did Rand actually beat this real Blade Master? My answer in my own headcanon is he wasn't a very good Blade Master, and that the Heron comes more cheaply on the Sean Chan side of the mission. So there's your answer, Turak. Okay.
Just be the last point before we leave this.
Okay, go.
It was a 10 hit power combo that ended in that slice.
And Rand's special meter was full.
And it was just to hit the power button. There was lights, there was sparks, and it ended with fatality.
Yes, it did. So as Rand comes to grips with killing a man, which he had not done before, he notices the two attendants who he'd completely forgotten about, and instead of like having to deal with them, they produced a dagger each themselves and put it to their chest, and they say something like "from birth till death" and stab themselves in the heart. After these guys have stabbed themselves in the heart, the others return to the room and look like they've seen a bit of action. A couple scrapes and bruises here and there. They've got cuts and bloodied weapons. I think Ingtar is the only one that doesn't have any wounds. Like Ingtar is still fine. Like he's been handling these Sean Chan soldiers just fine. So everyone just regroups, and they prepare to leave, but Rand wants to go back for Egwene, and which is when Ingtar calls him a fool for placing the girl above their quest and the battle with the Dark One as a whole. But Rand pushes back and says he would be damning himself if he didn't try to help her. And Ingtar has like a moment where he realizes Rand means business, and his fervor diminishes a little bit. But just then Euron warns them that the soldiers have been alerted now, because he's looking out the window again, and the officer is coming inside. So Ingtar orders them to leave, and he tries to take the horn from Matt, but Matt's already running. And they all follow Matt, and they exit the same way they came in, but Matt tosses the horn over the wall first. And Ingtar's upset about this, and Matt jumps over, and Ingtar tries to pick it up again, but Matt grabs it again, and he goes, "Look, it's not even scratched." Matt is just having a gay old time with this horn, and Ingtar is desperately trying to get his hand on it, but they run away. And as they run down the alley, they hear a gong sounding, and Rand vows to himself to come back for Egwene. And that is how the chapter ends. Them running down the alley with a horn. So we covered the most serious part of that chapter at the time that it happened. I mean, Blade Master fight at the end of book 2. Already such a more like, maybe this is from years of video games, like, okay, cool, they fought a boss at the end of this book. Cool. And then there's another one to come, which is great. And this fight, despite my initial questioning of how Rand earns this victory, is so much more satisfying than anything that happens at the end of the Eye of the World.
I love it. A man that walks into a fight not carrying his own pistol or sword. No.
The arrogant bastard got his comeuppance.
He got his comeuppance. We said it was coming for them. Yeah. We knew.
Yeah. Okay, do you guys have anything else, or should we keep going?
We can keep pressing on ahead.
Let's push on. So, Vili, you're going to take us through chapter 46, which is called To Come Out of the Shadow.
Oh, yes. It is. This is a biggie. I've never made so many notes ever in my life. In no chapter.
Everybody grab your tissues.
These girls are on a mission now. They've got Seta, and she is, and unfortunately I might reference this exact phrase a couple of times, she's shaking like a shitting dog. She got a collar on. She does not want to be seen with that collar on.
And she knows she's in a terrible situation.
She's in a situation. And she is now walking them in, literally, into the rooms. Damane rooms, up the stairs. Min and Elaine are obviously doing their best to look servant-like. Sort of, they won't be questioned, but everyone's minding their own business. Like it is like that Ocean's 11 where you just walk out with the money. They're just walking into without any problem. So they eventually get down the hallway and straight in to Egwene's room. And there she is sitting, at what I presume is on the bed or at the desk, something like lying with her head on her arms. And she looks up and it's like, damn, there it is. And she recognizes Seta. It's like, and she sort of puts it all together. It's like, holy shit, like it's them. And that's okay, happy moment. 5 women crowding a room. And there's a bit of a pause. And the next minute, Rena walks in.
Oh.
First, she gets her collar taken off. And she is angry, like what they've done with her. But now that thing is off, like, how did you learn? Look, I want to know a lot, but this is small time. Like, get changed. We've got a plan. We've got to move. And as they're in the midst of this plan of getting changed, and Seta's kind of like still whimpering and crying, like, please don't leave me here. Please just take this thing. Look, just sort me out. And the discussion comes up, sort of like what to do with them. It's like Elaine, Egwene, obviously very distressed about what they've done to her. She's got a very revengey type approach to it. But as all of this is going down, in walks Rena. And this is Egwene takes a microsecond and grabs the picture that she thought about peeling out with before and smashes her. So she doubles over. So
in the midriff.
She rammed her with that.
She shatters it like in her solar plexus, or like
it's like body shot. And no channeling. This is just straight up.
Rage.
I am beating the shit out of you right now. And as she doubles over, she doesn't even think about it, and she slaps that collar around her neck and immediately puts on the bracelet. Puts a hand over her mouth and lies on top of her, and then unleashes the torture. To the point where she was convulsing and only her legs kicking. And Elaine's like, no, you can't do this. Like, you can't.
Everybody else is like, fuck.
This is too heavy. And she's like, you don't understand. And then she realized what she's doing, and she kind of like rips off the bracelet part of it, and that's when she like obviously has the emotional release, the crying and the tears and the sort of, you just don't know what they've done, and sort of like, if you want justice, you wouldn't leave them alive, type of thing. Obviously, you've got both these two sultan sitting there, both got collars around their necks, and they're like, well, we should gag them. And Egwene's like, no need. They won't move. Just hook those bracelets on those pegs. They will sit there shaking like shitting dogs. That they get someone that finds them, that will realize what this means, and quietly removes those collars off their necks, so that they can go free and say that some miraculous way they got beaten up and
I think
saved.
That if someone finds them and takes those collars off, they're gonna be sleeping with the fishes. You can't leave loose ends like that. That's empire breaking news. That
and yet that's what happened.
It worked, and it's this realization, as Rena was still trying to understand what is happening. Seto has already been through this now for a while and realized how trapped she is just sitting and crying quietly. Like, this is the worst thing that can possibly happen in life. But they then just go and they leave. They literally just walk out.
Just scarp it off.
Done. It's hook those bracelets right on there on the wall. Bye-bye, girls. I hope someone that finds you doesn't make you their pet Thule, and let's get out of here. So as they hit the streets, they realize that, okay, sort of in their sort of ecstaticness or energy of now breaking out, they don't realize that the streets are empty, and there are advancing sunshine shoulders coming from. That's not a tongue twister.
There's what?
I'm not even going to try to. Sean.
The Sean Chan soldier situation.
Yes, the situation. Let me correct you there. Anywho, and Nynaeve's like, no, they have nothing to do with this. And Egwene loses her cool right there and say, well, kind of almost like, let me show you what I can do now. And she decides to just rip up the earth underneath these advancing infantry.
Look at what they taught me.
That was a good thing. I also picked up on that. Like, okay, cool. Egwene has got like advanced offensive magic now. They taught us some stuff.
And obviously, with her starting to channel, they become an immediate target. And 2 fireballs is already. They sent the mortars, and it's starting. And all of a sudden, all shit breaks loose.
Is it one the size of a horse, or a house is like arcing over the city?
A horse-sized house.
But when that happens, I couldn't help but think of Monty Python and the Holy Grail with that Trojan bunny being launched through the air. And the actual livestock.
Oh man, there's a lot of times when I think about that movie.
Almost daily.
Yep. So yeah, that's the battle is going, and Nynaeve is obviously angry that this has happened. They were able to walk out of there, like their tempers getting the better of them. This is so ironic. The woman who has the temper that gets the better of her all the time is angry with the other woman who never does it, but just decided that this is enough, and then does exactly the same thing and rains lightning on where the fireballs come from. So this is now the first serious power battle that's like really going down. And
Nynaeve again with the lightning.
Yeah, she's
I've
on the
noticed
lightning
that for the first time. Like that's her her weapon of choice.
Well, lightning is anger. Like she's just angry, and that's
and
like air, wind gushing down, a stormy personality.
Can speak to the wind.
So at that, they sort of put foot to the harbor, and that chapter section ends, and we jump over to Baal Damane, that now sees the shit show of the power battle that's happening off the docks, and his men are getting ready to. They're just like, this is the gap, sail now. And he's like, no, this is not happening. We waiting. I gave them my word. It's going to stay. And one of these men actually picks up one of the axes that they had ready to cut the ties. And I think he actually backhands him away from it, or smacks him. Can't recall exactly.
Something like that. He's adamant that they stay. Until
you
the
will stay,
arrive.
like even if it sinks the ship. And end. So we've got the girls on the move. We've got Damane keeping his words, and in comes Geoffram Bornold, and he sees the lightnings, flying monsters, and he's like, right, it's it. He sends Child Baia to go now and move with a message, and he sends his legion into Falme. It's time to do battle with these Sean Shan soldiers.
Just carry on.
Next cut, Rand. And they are now running, and they're in a narrow alley. And Perrin and Huron and Matt's already on the other end of the alley. And Ingtar and him is making sort of the back end, seeing if it's advancing. And that's where Ingtar says you can hold 50 men in a place like this. So Rand and Ingtar then has that little moment about
before Euron gets there.
Before Euron gets there, where he sort of almost just lets it out, the whole thing. I'm a dark friend, and it's like he's been trying to hold back the blight and always trying his best, and there's none of the Southerners cares about them. No one even thinks that a Trolloc is in storybooks and a Madral is a gleaming tale. Like, this is the daily things we face in the blight, and no one is caring. So why should I? And he didn't know that it was going to happen. And living those 1,000 lives in the portal, he saw all these things that became worse, with more worse things that's expected of him. and worse things that he had to do, and he really just wants to redeem himself. And that's where he tells Rand, "You go other way. I'm gonna make a stand here and kind of buy the time." And Rand is obviously shocked at all of this, but also reacts real quick, like sort of just like, "Okay, cool. We're not going to harp on about this." And he just says, light shine on you, Lord Ingtar of the house Shinoa, and may you shelter in the palm of the Creator's hand. Sort of like the formal Shinarian.
Yeah, the funeral rites.
Rites.
That's what they speak at their funeral. But Ingtar is still alive, which hit me quite hard, like Rand knowing what's going to happen. Yeah.
He's like, cool, this is your ultimate redemption. You've realized, and maybe that was the last minute, his desperation to get to the horn, and still it's not in his hand. Like, what's going to come from it? And he just gets this moment and like redeems himself. And Rand placed his hands on his shoulders. The last embrace of Mother welcomes you home. And that's when Huron hears that, he joins.
Yes.
And his jaw just drops. It's like, what the hell? Rand is basically given him his funeral rites in the alleyway, and they hit the road to the other end.
Because Huron is Ingtar's man. Like, Ingtar is his lord.
Yes.
So, like all that loyalty that Huron has displayed towards Rand that was garnered over just like a couple months, and he's been serving Lord Ingtar for a long time. So to hear this being said to his lord was shocking. Huron gets shocked a lot in these last couple of chapters. It's like, what? What are you talking about? Rand is the what? So in this exchange, Ingtar also says that what he wanted to do with the horn was he wanted to blow it and take the heroes to Shire Gould to face the Dark One himself. So that's another indication to me that the whole time Ingtar has been desperate to get to the horn. It has been not because he was told to get it by Ishmael or anyone else.
My interpretation of that whole bit there, and sort of really thinking into it, was that he had the right idea, like in his head, on what to do with the horn. But the 1,000 lives in the portal had given him the insight to see that every time he blows that horn, how he and then potentially the Arthur Hawkwing's returning soldiers actually fought for the dark side.
Doesn't he say that in none of the portal worlds he is redeemed?
No, it's not redeemed at all. They just use him again and again and again because they have this hold over him. So he knows the only way out of this hold is to actually make a stand and hold the alley.
Look, I agree that he is looking for redemption as well, but there's a point on his journey where it changes from I am a dark friend, and I think it's the portal stones. I think it's that
you think so?
When he lives those thousands of lives and gets that perspective on what he needs to do. That he goes,
he got that insight into what happens if I blow this horn.
Well, he also mentions the Grey Man that he let into the keep, saying that I didn't know whether it was you or the Amilin that he was supposed to kill, but he was shocked when he realized what he had done. But even at the beginning of the story, he was doing dark friendly stuff, right? Like we suspect that it was also him that let Peyton Fane out. We don't know that for sure, but that's always what I've thought.
Maybe the Grey Man let Fane out.
Well, Fane recognized the person that let him out. So I don't know if that fits. But, to Jody's point, at the beginning of this book, when we start reading about Ingtar in this book, he is still doing stuff for the dark. And there's not an awful lot that happens along the way that would sway him until they go to the portal stones. And he mentions it here, like he's talking here about what he saw in the portal stone world. So I think that is the turning point, Joe. I agree.
All right, so everyone's right. There you go. As long as we got that clear. Don't want to step on any toes. Look, he was a dark friend. He wanted to get the horn because I'm sure that's what he was told at the Dark Friend Social. Yes. And that it's on his journey, he finds redemption and decides, no, fuck that.
Remember, like when they were traveling, they just left Shinar. They crossed the river Erenin, and they were traveling through that land where it used to be an old kingdom,
Yeah,
and
that no man's
or
land.
maybe it was even before then. But Ingtar goes on this sort of introspective rant at one point. Not a rant, but he talks about like the futility of it all, and like we
Yes.
could see at that time how, you can see how what motivated Ingtar to switch to the dark, and he references that here as well, because he calls out the two countries. I think one is Caroline, that the Caroline grass is now named after, is a country that just died away, and the other one he mentions is that one that's immediately, or used to be immediately south of Shinar, that is now no longer a country. He references those two in here, saying, eventually Shinar is going to go the same way, because the blight is just relentless. The shadow is never ending. It's never going to stop trying. It's always coming. Sooner or later, it's going to happen. So why not preserve what we have now by just joining ranks with what we think is eventually going to take over? And that was always his motivation for being in the shadow.
Yeah.
But here, does he say like every man has the right to choose how he dies, and this would be a good death?
Yes.
And then he asks Rand, do you think me saving you here will be enough to redeem me? And Rand says to him, basically, all you really need to do is want to be redeemed. The fact that you want to be redeemed should be enough that the creator would, take pity on you. And when Rand gives him the funeral rites, that is like tearjerker, right?
Yes.
Like, I don't even remember it being this poignant, but this time around, maybe because we're talking about it and reinforcing the whole, arc for Ingtar all the time, it really hit home.
There's a moment here. It's when Rand says, I'm quoting here, "The last embrace of the mother welcome you home," and Huron gasped for the first of many times. And then Ingtar says, "Thank you." Ingtar said softly. A tension seemed to go out of him for the first time since the night of the Trolloc raid on Faldara. He stood as he had when Rand first saw him, confident and relaxed, content. And that's that moment where
I'm getting goosebumps now.
Oh, dude, that was the moment. That was the tissue box moment.
Just to know that he knew and believed within himself that he was redeemed.
I've done the right thing. It's over.
Finally, I can rest.
And
exactly.
This is where I'm going to drop a spoiler, because I don't often drop spoilers. Rand keeps it that clean.
Yes.
He's like right there. This is it. I don't have to stain this memory of this man. Right now, he's doing an honorable thing, and throughout this, he's done an honorable thing, even though he might not have had honorable intentions.
Good old Rand. Tam would be so proud.
Yeah, legend.
There's two things that Rand does. Yeah, like he never talks about what Ingtar told him to anyone ever again, and he never took Turak's sword, which I thought was weird. If you've just killed a blade master, why would you just leave his heron mark blade lying there? I know he had other things to think about, but there was a whole bunch of them. Nobody thought to pick up that sword? I don't know.
He's got one.
Yeah, well, not for long. Like I was thinking later on, like, oh shit, you should have taken that sword, bro.
Maybe the scimitar with its, like its different balance and shape is not actually something that Rand would be comfortable using.
Yeah, still, sell it. Buy some apples. I don't know.
Yeah, you like me, you play too many role-playing games. We're like, loot the body, you idiot.
You trade that later.
You can sell that at the end for 200 gold.
Exactly.
There's other stuff that happens in this chapter that I would like to get to as well.
Let's do it.
Okay. Egwene figured out the Suldam secret herself. She knew. She figured out that, okay, cool. Based on the stories, when they come to the villages, they round up all the girls they can channel, and they go they're just collared or demand immediately, and then they test the other girls to see if they can wear the bracelet, if they can feel anything, and these are the girls that can be trained to channel. And just listening to what the Suldam all know, everybody in Seanchan knows this. Egwene in a couple of days has put it together. Like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, the Suldam can also channel. Yeah. Like, surely someone else would have thought of this before, or maybe Egwene is just super smart. Like, I guess the Seanchan don't want to they don't want to question anything. Like, they're so set in their ways. But I was just so proud of her for figuring it out so easily.
There's our girls doing it again.
Our girls are so good. And I also loved when she said, "Let me show them what they taught me." That was also really, really cool. Now, Seta and Rena are still in the story for quite a while. They are, after they discovered, they are taken, the Lady Suroth takes them under her wing, who we know as a dark friend.
Yeah.
And she does keep them quite close. And then later, Matt, when he sneaks in to save a couple of Aes Sedai that have been collared, he takes them as well and uses them, both Seta and Rena. And that whole arc of them being in Van and Luca's traveling menagerie
circus,
and the whole circus thing, they're there. And Seta she's permanently scarred, and eventually, like after a while, she actually turns coat and she asks the Aes Sedai, after they've escaped with Matt, she eventually asks the Aes Sedai to teach her how to channel. And I think she eventually goes to the tower to be a novice. And Rena goes the other way. She remains loyal. And at one point, she tries to kill Matt, or even is Tuon with him. Like, anyway, she tries to do something, and she is gunned down with a crossbow bolt by one of Matt's red arms before she can make it back to a Sean-Chan group. Like, they just kill her in time after she betrays them and tries to run back to the Sean-Chan to resume her role as a Sul'dam. They kill her. So, like, both these ladies who are, now central to the plot of Sul'dam Can Channel do still play a role. And like Vili was saying, like, or Joe, you were saying, these are loose ends that should have been tied up.
Yeah.
And Siroth didn't do it. And eventually Seta actually turns and becomes, or at least attempts to become, Aes Sedai.
Because there's Nynaeve makes a very big point about her and Elaine at that time about justice and how let their justice be different, like to what they do. But Egwene then jumps in and collars Rena and then tortures the shit out of her.
But just a little
bit. She went angry the other way. Oh, well, I don't know. I read into things
What
a lot.
did she say? Like when Egwene realizes it's Seta that they've walked into the room with, she says, "Oh, I want to get to her," because didn't she like give her the feeling of being boiled alive or something like?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like
Egwene wants to show her, okay, you did this to me. This is what it feels like.
Oh my god.
Yeah. I mean, understandably upset. But then she breaks down in tears, Egwene. She's obviously suffering from some form of post-traumatic stress disorder.
PTSD, for sure.
She is heavily affected by this. And I mean, it comes up throughout the story. Egwene remembers this period. What else? Okay, do you guys have anything else? Because I'm dominating the conversation here just because I took 13 pages of notes.
I don't have anything more. That this is just such a big chapter. I mean, in every way, it's like it just happens. Like,
yeah, shit's gone off now. Like when Damane is standing on the boat and like the town is in chaos, Turek's been killed, the gong has sounded, like the guards are all up and down the streets, and like Damane have been freed. There's fireball and lightning fights in the streets. Shit is popping off big time, which leads me to another thing I want to talk about. Damane makes another big show here of staying in the harbor. But we know that he doesn't wait for the girls.
He waits as long as he can. I mean, he waits longer than is safe.
But there's a lot of emphasis placed on him making it very clear. There's 2 points of view sections within these last 2 chapters where he's standing on the boat going, Yaren, make sure there's axes there, but we're not going anywhere until the girls get here. And then this one, chaos around him, smacks a guy away from the line that's trying to cut ranks. He's going, we are staying until the girls arrive. And then just like a couple chapters later, the girls are just walking around town saying, yeah, no, we never went there. We never went to the boat.
It was just good to see Bale again.
I guess. I mean, but I'm wondering what the point was of this heavy emphasis, like twice going back to Damane.
Character table setting?
His character development, he's a good oak. You can rely on him. This is going to come up later because he does.
I think what is going to happen later is we will probably find Ekian and interact with him in a way. Maybe she doesn't have a ship anymore and needs to commandeer a ship, and maybe she forces his hand.
Yeah.
Because we know they end up and actually get married. But it seemed odd in the context of this book only. You're reading The Great Hunt. You've got these 2 chapters of Bail Damane, forcing everyone to wait in the harbor, and then that comes to nothing.
Yeah. All right.
There's another line like that we will also get to, but I'll wait till the very end until we get there.
All right.
And then finally, the White Cloaks. Jeffrey Bornhold, legendary captain, the best general that the White Cloaks have to offer, decides, okay, we're going to attack. His order: the Legion will advance at a walk.
Yes, his
Okay?
exact words.
Yes. And then later, the Legion will advance at a trot. Like,
Saving their
what
energy. They're far away.
I mean, they're walking in a long line into basically a human meat grinder. Like,
Yeah.
where's the legendary general tactics? Where's the flanking maneuver? Where's the... It's just, okay, let's everyone line up and walk at them.
To our deaths.
That's
they
literally his
are
order.
white cloaks after all.
And anyone could have... Like, I mean, is his legendary status just that he's the one that said that the most and survived, and everyone else has been cut down because this is a stupid tactic?
It is a pretty stupid tactic. This is like Game of Thrones Season 8. Throw all the Dothraki. Just kill them all in the first battle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
It
don't
is
know.
stupid. He throws away an entire legion, basically.
I laughed out loud when I read those orders because it's literally like, first, the Legion will advance at a walk. The Legion, and even in delivering the order, it's like in this weird, pompous, like parade fashion. It's just not effective.
Huh.
Anyway.
Yes, I didn't think about that. There was other stuff going on that I was far more interested in because that's in my chapter now, and it's just
Yes.
Yeah, it's such a small part of everything else that's going down.
What the fuck? Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, it is stupid.
Speaking of your chapter, Joe, let's get stuck into it. It's chapter 47, and it's "The grave is no bar to my call."
All right, hang on. I've got to get comfortable here because I got to do this chapter justice because this is some heavy shit. All right,
it's good shit, eh?
Whew. All right, so this chapter opens in that alleyway where we've left Ingtar and everybody, and we hear Ingtar shout in the distance, "For the light and Shinowa!" and the clashing of steel. And Matt and Perrin are already at the end. They've already got on their horses. They're mounted, but they want to go back. They hear him, and Rand's come running up there, and he tells them that, look, we can't go back to help him. He is dying to save us. So Matt's got the horn hanging on the pommel of his horse again, just like hanging around with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just any old thing. And then as they start running off again, we hear Ingtar shout for one final time. And this time it says triumphantly, "For the light and Shinowa," and also for the last time as lightning flashes across the sky in answer. Like, this whole setup is amazing. Yeah. This whole, if you haven't read this, to our listeners, just go back and read this chapter out of the whole book. All right. So they gallop away from the shout and just trying to get away. Rand's constantly like, "I've got to find a queen. I've got to find a queen." And they stop short on a hill overlooking Falme. Perrin and Matt and Huron and everybody catch up to Rand after that. And they all just can't figure out what's going on and what needs to be done. Matt and Perrin don't understand what Rand is going on about and why they left Ingtar behind. And all of this is, of course, confusing the fuck out of Huron. Still, he is, like you said earlier, these last two chapters, really, he is just like an observer from the outside, just tagging along, going, "What? The who? The what?" Yeah. Rand is accepting his duty there. So he says to them, like, "Look, we're going to split up. You guys, you're going to take the horn. You're going to go with Varen, and you're going to go back to the White Tower." And Matt's like, "What? No, I'm not leaving you now." He's like, "Dude, we've got to heal you. You've got to go. I'm going to go back for Egwene and save her." Perrin and Matt want to stick together. There's that loyalty. They're like, "Okay, we're not leaving you." But Rand's like insisting, "No, you've got to go back to Tarvalon so that we can heal him." So all this is going on. And while they're arguing like this as well, like Matt and Perrin are saying, like, "Have you gone mad already? Like, maybe he's already insane." And Huron's like, "Why would he be insane? What are you guys talking about?" So while all this
sleep, what's going on?
Like, Ingtar's dead. Why did we leave him behind? And why are you going insane? I was like, "Dude, just wait. It gets even crazier." So while all this arguing is going on this hilltop, the Seanchan have formed their ranks below and are swarming out of Falme. Like, the description as well is like this black ocean of soldiers, thousands and thousands of them. And then from the other side of the field, there you see the white cloaks approaching them. And they decide that, well, they've realized that they are not going anywhere. They're stuck here. Like, no one's going to Tarvalon. No one's going into Falme. Yeah. All your plans are shit. All right. Yeah. They got the horses. They got Grom. They got those lizard things and elephants. They've got elephants in battle. Plus, they got the Soldam and the Damane, so they got a formidable force. There's lightning streaking the sky. There's a storm of Seanchan, basically. So this is the final stretch that everyone's in. And Matt's like, all of that is for us? Are they coming to fight us specifically? Like, he looks at the Seanchan army and thinks it's for him, and then realizes, oh no, wait, shit, there's the legion of white cloaks approaching. So okay, that's what's happening. It's not just for us 5 dudes sitting up on top of this hill. So they are literally between a rock and a hard place. So Matt's like, well, fuck it. We've got the horn. Nobody says that, I mean, it's just got to be there at the last battle, but nobody says what you can do with it in between, right? And he's looking back and forth at the others going like, right? And they all just look at him and he goes, fuck it, blows the horn.
Fuck it, blow it.
Go, Matt.
The air, the earth, the sky reverberate with a golden note, and a fog begins to rise. So then we switch to Joffrey, his point of view. And this is the stupid part that you were talking about. He hears the horn and thinks the Seanchan are up to something. So he draws his sword, but it is a very cool scene. He draws his sword, and you hear the clattering of all the other scabbards down the line as everyone else draws their swords, and they advance. And this is where he's like, the Legion will advance at a trot. And then everyone starts dying around him as lightning's going into them. He's like, okay, not a trot, a gallop. Everyone start running. Trot is not going to help us. All right.
No.
Then over the screams of the dying men and the horses, Bornhold commands his men to charge, and his last thought is regret that Baia would not be able to tell his son how he died. And this is even makes it even worse. Like that's how Bornhold goes out, sacrificing all of his men, and with regret that his son is not going to know how he died. Like, after your whole life of service, this is,
yeah,
I don't know. Fine, okay, whatever. He's dead, gone. Back to the boys. They're all surrounded by a fog. But Rand can see through it. So he can see everything. He can see the battle happening in the sky. He can see Falme. He can see Bail Damane standing on his boat in the harbor in Seanchan. So even at this point, Bail is still there waiting. I wrote you, it's kind of like an IMAX experience for Rand, because it's like, way he can look way on the top and see something, and way on the bottom and left and right. He can see everything that's happening in this area. And see lightning ripping through the streets. That's probably Nynaeve, her handiwork. It's like I say, you can see the ships in the harbor. You can see the white cloaks charging and dying. And then they all see the heroes of the ages coming down the side of a billowing fog, like they're coming down the side of a mountain. They on their horses and walking and whatnot. I don't know. Rand recognizes them all. There's names like Rogosh Eagle Eye, Gaidel Kane, Birgit with her bow. How do you pronounce this? Because I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos lately. And people are
they all over the shop?
All over the shop. I've got like Birgit. That's how I always pronounced it.
Bridget.
I've gone more German with my pronunciation, and I've always pronounced it as Birgitte.
Oh. Well, yeah, the chick with the bow. She's there too.
Because you spell it the same as Brigitte, except you swap the I and the R around.
Yes. Yeah.
Birgitte?
And I know a Brigitte.
Yeah,
Don't we
I
all?
also know Birgitte. We all know Birgitte.
Yes. Okay. So then, leading them all is Arthur Hawkwing. An awe-inspiring sight, to say the least. And Rand says, is that all of you? And it's like, this immediately, like, because he's expecting a legion or something, and there's like 100 of them. And he's like, what? Is that all of you? And this reminded me, like, Marvel in Endgame totally stole this moment. I was just thinking when all the portals open and they bring all all the heroes back from that have been snapped back into reality. And Doctor Strange asks one, is like, is this all of them? And he's like, what, you wanted more? Totally copied this section. This is where it comes from, people. Somebody write to Marvel. So Arthur addresses Rand as Luz Theron, as does Birgit. And Rand's like, that's not me. I'm Randall Thor. Randall Thor. He keeps trying to like call himself, correct them all the time. Rand. Yes, sure, dude. And Rand tells them about the Seanchan and that they need some defeating. And there's a limbering of bows and axes and spears, and Gaidel Kane draws his 2 swords. Hawkwing's sword, Justice, is already shining in his hand. But something's holding them back. And Hawkwing actually says this, like, we're ready to charge, everybody's ready to attack, but he can't. There's something insubstantial holding him back. And he goes, do you have the banner? And this is what we spoke about ages ago, like Moraine telling him to take that banner, keep it with you, because someday it might save your life. And if he had not had it,
it will save your life,
or it will save your life, yes, or whatever. Yeah. But basically, yes, this is the moment that little foretelling comes true. Like, after blowing the horn, if he had not had the banner, would they not have rode with him? Something was physically holding them back, that they, even though they wanted to, the heroes, they couldn't.
Don't know.
Well, their call was for a purpose, and they needed to follow someone. I mean, they didn't follow Matt.
Well, I'm saying that's what another thing I was wondering. If he didn't have the banner, would they just have followed the guy who blew the horn? But at that moment, that the pattern was where it sent them all out. They all knew that the Dragon Reborn was there, and that they were going to have to follow him. Like, they were all on board with that, all the heroes. And this is another point where Huron's mouth falls open. It's like, the Dragon Reborn? Dear Lord, I've been following the Dragon Reborn this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, Huron, I say my words are, Huron shits his pants a little. It is confirmed. Matt accepts it. Now, Matt's like, well, all right, he is the Dragon Reborn. Enough of this man who can channel nonsense. Perrin accepts it. Perrin even jumps off his horse, goes and chops down a young sapling and brings it back. And now he's the banner, or the bearer of the flag.
Yeah.
The banner bearer for this army, with the Dragon Reborn's banner flapping in the wind. And as he puts it up, it actually flaps in a wind that does not exist. So it is a magical banner on its own. So Rand tells Huron to wait there, and again, Huron's like, fuck that noise. I've obviously with more respect, but he's like, no, I've come all this way. I'm fighting with you, Lord Rand. And there's a moment where Hawkwing respects him for it and actually like puts his hand on his shoulder and tells him, like, perhaps one day we will count you amongst our number in the heroes. And like, this is Huron's greatest day of his life.
This was almost my favorite moment.
Yes, he's like, oh my god.
He looks as if it says he looks as if he's been offered a crown.
Yes. I mean, like, to him, it's like, wait, Rand's the Dragon Reborn. Ingtar's dead. Arthur Hawkwing's like got his hand on my shoulder. Like, what's going on? He's just a lowly sniffer from the borderlands, and his life is just going to change forever.
He's going to have a real tale to tell his wife and family.
Oh yeah, maybe that's why he leaves.
And no one will believe.
I got to go tell this tale. I can't hang out with you guys anymore. So Perrin puts up the banner. Rand draws his sword, and they charge into the mist towards Falme. But it's during this charge that I suppose we enter the world of dreams again, because a lot of this, especially when it takes place with Baalzamon, he's not in our world. He's in the world of dreams. Yeah. But in these beginning books, we don't really know that. It comes it plays such a big part later on, but then you're always familiar with it. But in these parts, it's very confusing.
Yeah, the mechanics are much more well established later. There's rules, entering in the flesh, about changing things flickering in and out of existence as they are more or less permanent in the real world. Like, the more permanent stuff stays there, things that are not permanent sort of flicker in and out of existence in the world of dreams. All that stuff is well established. Yeah. And they give the rules to Egwene and the Aiel Dreamwalkers. They explain a lot of that stuff. But here, it's very it's
very fluid.
Okay, I guess. Yeah. Very foggy, so to speak.
Yeah, it suits the story, so this is how it works. Yeah. So,
plus, Rand doesn't know any of that stuff.
Yeah, so if we're getting it from his point of view, he's just as confused, and that's why we are, I suppose. So, but during this charge towards Falme, Rand is suddenly alone. This is when he gets assumed pulled into the world of dreams, and then Baalzamon appears before him, and Red, his horse, for those who are not following along, rears wildly and almost throws him from the saddle. But Rand doesn't hit the ground, I suppose, again, because this is the world of dreams, that he just he lands on nothing. He says he feels like he lands on nothing. So Rand and Shamael are alone in the fog, and there's a shadow behind Ishi as he approaches land. And I guess it's that the dark one behind him. We've seen it as a cord before. Here it's just like a blackness behind him. It's not blackening the fog. It's a separate entity as well. And he's holding a black charred staff in his hand. Now, is there any significance to him choosing this weapon? And why is it black and charred? Have you read anything or heard anything about this?
Because he's just full of the taint.
Not so much about it being black and charred, but I had the same question because, well, Ishmael is also a blade master.
Mm.
So I found it interesting that he would choose a staff over a sword. And I wondered if this had something to do with that sort of Musashi style quote that people use about, the farmer with the staff is the only one that bested two warders. I think Hamar tells that story to the younglings at some point in the White Tower.
When Matt kicks Gawain and Gallad's
Yes.
ass.
Yes.
With his quarterstaff.
Exactly, yeah. That is when Hamar
Yeah.
says, he tells that story. And that is a story like stemming from, the Japanese warrior poet Musashi, who apparently didn't lose to a quarterstaff wielding fighter, but had the most trouble with a guy wielding a quarterstaff, not another swordsman.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe it gives like a bit of an edge.
Because he thinks he's going to need it.
I hold the belief that Moraine, when she channeled in the ways, her staff was also filled with soot and ash, and that. I mean, that's their power weapon. That's their wizard staff.
It's got a wizard staff, all right. But because he's a dark one, it's all blackened
and because he's all in the evil side of things, he's obviously got so much of the taint that this weapon just goes all charry.
Okay, there you go. So anyway, there's no consensus then on the charred blackness of the staff and the significance of that weapon at this moment.
I was wondering if you were going to go in Vili's direction of maybe he picked up Moiraine's staff and, because it was charred and blackened after she channeled in the ways. If maybe this is, like a further corruption of it. But that's not what I think. I think this is just Robert Jordan adding more flavor into a pretty loose description of what... I don't know if Robert Jordan knew at this point that he was going to say at some other point that Ishmael was a blade master in the Age of Legends. This could just be a cool, like Vili was saying, a wizardy trope. He's an evil wizard, he's got a staff. Makes sense. It fits.
Okay. He's an evil wizard with a staff. Anyway, so Rand is still aware of the others as they fight the Seanchan. So he's got a connection to everyone and everything that's happening around him. And they are pushing the Seanchan back. So they seem to be having some success. Rand assumes the void. Now this time he kind of has to. And embraces Saidin and tells Ishmael to get the fuck out of his way. I'm paraphrase a lot. All right. But basically, his only concern is for Egwene. And there's a lot, again, this is very typical of him, but there's more of that. You are mine, Lews Therin, blah, blah, blah. You will serve me or you will die, blah, blah, blah. And he even laughs at him again. He's like, Lews Therin, it's always a woman with you. Like, over the ages, it doesn't matter what incarnation it is of you. You're always running after some woman. And it's Egwene this time. All right. So he decides to keep him occupied. Rand decides to keep Ishmael occupied to give the others a chance to go and rescue Egwene, because he realizes, look, I'm stuck here in whatever this world is, this place is. I'm not going to get away from this dude with the blackened staff, this evil wizard.
Yeah.
The other guys are going to have to go and rescue. So he's just going to keep him as occupied as possible for as long as possible. As usual, I'll call him Balazi here for some reason. Balazi is talking too much and says, you are tied to the horn now that you've blown it. And Rand goes, oh shit, he doesn't know everything. Like, this is not the Dark One. He thinks I blew the horn. So if he doesn't know that, what else doesn't he know? So here we got this, and this kind of gives Rand some confidence. So knowing that, like, this guy doesn't know everything. And so Rand attacks. And there's lightning and sparks, as we discussed earlier. And he pushes Beelzemon back. At the same time, he notices the Seanchan are falling back in the battle. And this is when Rand starts to realize that their fight is connected to the battle that's happening in Falme at the moment. Whenever Rand gains ground, his side advances over the Seanchan. Whenever Beelzemon pushes back, the Seanchan surge and take back some of the ground. So this battle is being mirrored. Their battle in the sky is being mirrored on the ground itself.
Now, is that just the Tavernus that...
Yes. Again, no sense being made
pattern, that it's just that as soon as he wields the pattern in the favor of the light, that it spills through even to the men on the ground doing battle.
Or maybe it inspires them and they rally. Like when they see this dark force being beaten, everyone is, they get a morale boost to take it back to a role-playing game.
I think it's more
Yes.
than that. I think it's a direct connection, something mystical that I am not aware of. If our listeners know what happened, please write in and tell us what is the
Yes.
significance of that staff and and how is this connection? Is it important, or should we just gloss over it?
Because the Sean-Chan are also not inherently dark.
No,
friends.
exactly. What have they got to do with Beelzemon? But we know that one of the
Exactly.
Forsaken is there. Is it Semirog? Who
Yeah.
is in Sean-Chan?
Semirog.
Semirog.
Well, I'm not going to be saying anything good about them. They're a bunch of low bag sailors.
All right.
Continue,
Okay.
Joe.
So we'll pick up then. So it's more of the same serve me or die bullshit, and more forms, lots of descriptive forms. The dove takes flight, the falling leaf. There's a back and forth, which is again reflected in the battle between the Sean-Chan and the heroes. And Beelzemon says, those who might save you will be carried far across the ocean. Like there's no hope for you, Rand. So they know how important Egwene, Nynaeve, and Elaine and all those people. I mean, that was a much deeper plan than once I thought. Suroth was there waiting. Leandrin brought them. Like they knew exactly who these women were and how important they were to the dragon, and they need to be taken away. They need to be taken out of the picture.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of talk as well on the interwebs about everyone from Emmons Field being Ta'Veren. Egwene is also Ta'Veren. Nynaeve is also Ta'Veren. That they all form part of this, not just the boys.
Maybe not as strongly as the others, but certainly there is an argument to be made.
Well, we've said it a couple of times as well. Yeah, absolutely, that they are just all Ta'Veren.
Yeah,
especially the girls.
The dark side knows about this as well, so that's why they're trying to separate them. And Rand notices for the first time that Beelzemon is weary of his sword. He's got his eyes on it during the battle, and he thinks, wait, steel can't harm the Dark One. And he can feel, but he can. Now I'm wondering now if it's because of the way he's using the sword, because he's got the sword in his hand and it's Aes Sedai wrought, and he's using the one power. The one power is actually flowing into the sword. He can feel the molecules of the metal infused with the one power during this fight. And I'm wondering if he could do that with any sword, or is it specifically because of an Aes Sedai wrought sword? And that is why Beelzemon is weary of it. He wouldn't be as weary if it was just a plain sword, but because it's infused with the one power, that is why he's a bit weary of it.
Maybe.
Anyway, more pins to be discussed later.
Please, listeners, enlighten us.
Yeah. So anyway, and that's another one of the points where he goes like, look, he doesn't know everything. He's afraid of a sword. Maybe this guy isn't as big and bad as I've always thought. So anyway, yeah, this Aes Sedai sword of his may be making the difference. And this is the point where he hears Ingtar's voice in his head. It is every man's right to choose when to sheathe the sword. So he chooses Heron waiting in the rushes. Told you it's going to come back later. Sword held high. I will never serve you, father of lies. Beelzemon runs him through with the staff, and with the last of his strength, Rand plunges his sword into Beelzemon's heart, and the world explodes in fire. And that is how we leave that chapter.
Ho, ho, ho.
Deep breath, sigh.
Good one.
I'm going to go lie down. You guys finish this, okay?
He's beaten the second boss.
It's 2 level bosses.
In this level, there's 2 level bosses.
Now, this level boss is now a proper level boss. He's not someone whose servants carry his sword.
No, he's the real deal.
Yeah, and I'm surprised he fell for the sheathing of the sword move.
Rand breaks him here. He, up until now, has resisted the urge to kill Rand. He's always talking about how you will always serve me and you've always, succumbed to me. And then Rand, in this exchange, he goes, I have never served you. You may have killed me before, but I have never, ever served you. And he's sort of like saying, come, okay, let's end this then, And I think Shamal sort of realizes in that moment, fuck, this kid is so stubborn. I am never going to get him to bend to my will. So, fine. I've been trying for months and months and months, trying all my best Halloween costumes and scary eyeball burning tactics and, breaking rats' backs. And, like he's pulled out the whole bag of tricks. And Rand is just getting more and more cocky, or not cocky, but more and more hell-bent on not serving. So I think he finally just gives up. Because he is also just, hungry for power. He was just a man. He's a very, very old man. But, he was certainly fallible in the Age of Legends. And maybe he still is, just in different ways. But I get the sense that here, this was it. Okay, fine. I've given up trying to convert you now. I'm just going to try and kill you. And maybe that's why he goes for it. Like in that moment where he's made the decision, he falls for that thing. Because he does... he strikes true, right? Like he gets in there and he stabs Rand, and we find out later that if Nynaeve hadn't found Rand, he would have been dead. So he would have succeeded in that thing. But Rand, in that position that he's in, and Heron wades in the rushes or through the rushes, he has the sword up high in a reverse grip, which, what did you imagine that to be, Jody? Him holding the hilt and the sword pointing down.
Yes.
So that he could plunge it into Ishamal's heart. And I think he actually channels through the sword as well. And, that's why it melts eventually. Now, I've got a somewhat humorous question based on that little scene. If he has the sword in a reverse grip, is the second Heron brand on his hand upside down?
It's got to be, man.
It must be.
But maybe it's sideways. Like one of the herons is looking to the left and the other one's looking to the right.
Okay. Well, like a heron, tall, thin bird. I always imagined it being, upright on the handle.
Well, yeah, it would be. But then if he's holding the handle like that, I suppose then the herons would be horizontal on his palms, and they might be looking at each other or looking away, because he's had it in the different hand grip.
That's true. That's true. But yes, it certainly would be pointing in the other direction.
Yes, it is not the same way. Now, listen, this is all moot, because if we've all seen the sword from the TV show, there are no herons on the blade of that sword, on the hilt of that sword. No, there aren't. So how the hell is he going to get branded?
Maybe there is one on the other side.
Yes.
And when he holds it in upside down, it burns him on the other side of his hand.
Yes.
On the other hand.
Well, that makes sense.
On the other hand.
A single side of it's got a heron.
They mention a couple animals in that Sean Chan lineup. Large bird-like creatures. They're called Korm, with a C. They're 8 feet tall and weigh 300 pounds. They're basically like vicious-looking ostriches.
Yes, that's what I always pictured them as. It's like a war ostrich.
Yeah. And the lizards are called Torm.
Ah, that's it.
They're the size of a horse, but they're basically these great cats with scales. So they look like lizards, but they're actually cat-like. And they have 3 eyes as well. They are super intelligent. And they actually have riders, but they only pick one rider for life.
All right.
They also cannot be deployed anywhere near Korm because they try and kill them.
Can't fight those two guys together. All right.
No. And the elephants are called Seredit.
And there's a skull of those elephants in the Stone of Tyr, is it not?
It's in Tanchico, I think.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
In the Panox Palace.
Oh, okay.
Bail Domon references it on the spray when he's talking about all the weird and wonderful things that are out there to see in the world.
Yeah.
When Rand and Matt and Tom are escaping Shadow Life.
There's a saber-toothed tiger skull or something.
No.
All right.
Damon's got one.
Yeah.
He's got a saber-toothed tiger skull.
He has one, yes.
All right.
Or he had one.
I made a note about Bornhold's last thought. Regret that Bayar would not be able to tell his son how he died, which I thought was a little conceited. Like, okay.
That's what I'm saying. The end of Bornhold's arc falls very flat.
Total anticlimax.
Yeah.
Especially with his stupid orders.
And he would know how he died. He died fighting the Shawnchan in battle. He was stabbed in the eye 5 times, or what? I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
He fell off his horse when his horse got struck by an arrow and died breaking his neck.
Ooh.
Yeah, maybe. Big sigh of relief. Okay, we've killed a Blade Master. We've ostensibly killed a Forsaken. What is left? Just a bit of cuddling, as Vili put it before the episode.
There's a lot of cuddling now.
Some cuddles coming.
Let's get to the cuddles and just wrap this thing up. The next chapter is called Chapter 48, First Claiming, which I thought was interesting in terms of like, this is like the claiming of Rand is like such a like side battle. It doesn't have any relevance to the battle with the Dark One or anything. It's basically like who claims Rand first. And I don't know if this is alluding to Min or to someone else that shows up at the end of this chapter, but we'll get there. So the chapter starts and we join Min as she's making her way through Falme, which is in total chaos. She's looking for Elaine, Nynaeve, and Egwene, but she's also feeling something else pulling her forward. So notably, she's not on the spray, and she's just walking through Falme. So looking for the other girls, not thinking that they might be on the spray. So I don't know if she's noticed that the spray has left or that the girls are nowhere near the docks, or if this other force pulling her forward is overriding everything else. But she's looking at the burning Seanchan ships, and she doesn't blame Damane for leaving because apparently he's left by that stage now. Okay, so there's our answer. That's why she's not on the boat, because she's realized that he has left, and she doesn't blame him for leaving. And she notices one Seanchan ship that is not on fire currently. It looks like it had been on fire. And she then sees who we know is Birgitte, who I've, since our last conversation, have looked up in the back of the book, is Birgitte.
Mm-hmm.
Birgitte Silverbow riding her horse out over the water. So these guys are not just there, they are there with like ghost powers.
Oh, right.
And fires a single arrow from her silver bow, which is on fire, and sets the ship ablaze again. And even as the ship's trying to get away, she can see all the crew members like scrambling to try and put it out. She even thought at one point that she recognized Arthur Hawkwing, which couldn't be the case, which begged the question, how did she recognize Arthur Hawkwing? How did, people recognize Rogosh Eagle Eye and those things? They all must have had physical traits that would identify them. Birgitte's easy, silver bow. No one's going to have that. I think Arthur has this sword. What is it called? Justice or something? Like a big shining sword. Maybe that's what tipped it off. But anyway, she's compelled to enter a tall stone building, and as she moves through it in the garden at the back, she finds Rand unconscious, and next to him his ruined sword. She pries it from his hand, and it sort of like sticks to the heron brand. It gave me the chills. Sorry, non-South African listeners, it gave me the heebie-jeebies as she sort of like pulls it off his hand, and she sees the hole in his coat, and that, obviously he took some kind of damage there, and when she pulls it back, the wound is cauterized. So where Ishmael stabbed him with the staff, that wound is cauterized. And so she doesn't feel like she needs to do anything about his wounds per se, but she just pulls him inside and finds a bed to put him in. And when she tries to sort of warm him up because he's ice cold, she realizes that he has no body heat for the blankets to sort of trap in there. So she sees this as the perfect opportunity to just scooch in there and have a bit of a cuddle.
Fucking perv.
So as she does that, and she's lying there with Rand, Egwene walks in. And it's like, and all she says is, "Oh."
Oh, hello.
Okay, so Min immediately is flustered, and she's like, I was just trying to help him, And Egwene then says she also felt the pull, and so did Elaine, but Nynaeve didn't. So even though they're making a distinction between the girls and Nynaeve having a pull towards Rand, Egwene is included in that. So Min felt a pull, Elaine felt a pull. I wonder what Avienda was feeling off in the waist. Like, oh no, I don't know why I'm so sad and worried, but I'm sad and worried. I must go to Falme across the world. But Egwene felt it as well, which is noteworthy, So it's not like Rand's feelings for her or her feelings for Rand were fake or to be disregarded at all. They were very, very real. And I mean, what pulled Rand through a lot of the previous chapter was also his desire to get to Egwene. It's just that in Min's viewings, and obviously as we know at the end of the story, it is just Min and Avienda and Elaine who do end up with Rand. And it's at that point that Egwene says to Min, you know what he is, right? He's not safe to marry. This is not some man that you can pin your future to. But Min immediately responds with, speak for yourself. You cast him aside for the tower. What would you care if I pick him up? Really getting on the defensive, because obviously she's been she's been caught here, and I think she's caught herself out a bit as well. Like, she doesn't like to admit that she actually has feelings for Rand and that she has feelings for anyone, like, and she's kind of wrestling with that realization herself as well, and that's why she's getting worked up. And Egwene just looks at her for a while and, sort of has this like pensive look on her face, and then eventually just turns and walks away and goes to find Nynaeve. So Min mentions in her musings to Rand that there is another woman yet to enter the fray, as I've termed it in my notes, and we know that's Avienda, of course. And then in walks the most beautiful woman ever, in the whitest dress ever, with her silver adornments and her hair as black as night. And she comes in and she starts talking candidly about Rand being the Dragon Reborn, name dropping Ishmael, thinking that he controls events, and he seems, thinking that he is calling the shots, but it's clearly her that's doing it. And as she sort of like brushes Rand's hair from his face, and Mindus is looking in like horror, like, who's this beautiful, beautiful woman, and what is going on here? It looks like Lanfear draws a symbol on Rand's forehead, sort of marking him.
I did not.
And I'm wondering if the chapter title is referring to this. Is this the first claiming of Lanfear on Rand, or is Min the first of the three that eventually end up with him to claim him and to pronounce or to announce, quite openly that she's in love? I don't know. It could go either way. I'm not decided on.
Didn't she draw a symbol of a dragon's fang on his head?
Yes, Min mentions that it looks like it could be the dragon's fang. Because there's obviously nothing there, but the outline that she traces could be that.
I don't know. I'll probably go with Min doing the claiming.
You think?
Yeah, it's a very big sort of interaction between her and Egwene, and saying, like, you threw him away. Why should it matter that I pick him up?
That is where my gut takes me as well. I feel like it is Min claiming Rand.
Yes.
So Min demands to know from this woman who she is, and she says, "I'm called Lanfear, girl." And Lews Therin was and is mine. Tend him well for me until I come for him. And then she just vanishes. It's not like she stands up and walks away and walks through a portal to somewhere else, or travels anywhere, or like walks out of the building or anything. She just goes invisible, which we know they can do later in the story, which is a weave that you have to settle on yourself and all that sort of stuff. But the fact that Lanfear goes through that effort, like, made me chuckle, that she's prone to a bit of theatrics. Like she's just sitting there and just goes, I will come for him later, and then casts a thing on herself to make herself invisible, and then probably
sneaks
like
out.
tiptoes out of the room so that Min doesn't hear, which is just a great scene. Like, if you had to like see her do it, would be great. But it also kind of reinforces those other times where we thought Lanfear might have been there. Like Rand, looking at the letters and could smell Lanfear in the room. Like, I think she was there. I think
she's been pulling an invisible woman stunt and just sneaking around on her tiptoes.
She's a crazed stalker, man. That's all that it comes down. She's a crazed stalker.
But now we know as well that traveling using the true power is different. Does she ever had access to the true power? Did she perhaps not travel?
I wonder.
Because the air just kind of fuzzes and they disappear.
Yes, because Lews Therin mentions something happening in the air when Elan Morin, appears to him in Dragonmount in the prologue of the world.
So it's not like a line that rotates and opens like traveling does with one power. Like the air just shimmers and they appear. So they could be like appearing and disappearing at will.
And from Min's point of view, that could be like, it doesn't matter what happens in the air. She literally disappeared seconds later. So, I don't know. But I like the idea of her being sort of like playing up the theatrics of like, look how powerful I am. Blink. And then tiptoeing out of the room. And then so the end of this chapter, we just cut to Child Baiar, who's galloping to Tarvalon to relay, or to the Fortress of Light. I think he goes first. It is closer. I mean, Amadisia is much closer than Tarvalon from where they are, to go relay the messages that Jeffrey Bornold gave him to relay. Most importantly, being that Dark Friends had betrayed them. Well, in Child Baiar's mind anyway, Dark Friends had betrayed them. Dark Friends like Perrin from the Two Rivers. And he has to tell the Lord Captain Commander Pedro Niel what he'd seen in the sky, and obviously also this message about the Aes Sedai now fighting openly for the, as they term, the dark.
Yeah.
End of chapter.
Indeed. I think the biggest takeaway there is that Lanfear goes invisible and then tiptoes around and goes probably just to another room and then travels from there so that no one could see it. But I love that.
Yeah.
I love that she's just tiptoeing around invisible.
Yeah, and those little soft slippers. I forgot to mention that the sword that Min finds next to Rand is like there's only a foot of the blade left. It looks like it's been melted off.
Exactly.
I'm inclined to think that whole Lanthea was completely unnecessary. It for me had nothing to do really with the story plot or anything. Like it's so throwaway.
But for the first time reader, this is the first time she's calling herself Lanfear in the guise of Selene. You know, so if you were just completely oblivious to all the like neon signs that Robert Jordan's been dropping along the way, this is now definitive, just closing that loop, saying, "Yeah, okay." You think you think Min is claiming Rand here, and then Lanfear steps in and goes, "You're just a girl, and these other novices are sort of also interested in Rand. I am, you know, the mistress of the night, or whatever her moniker means. One of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, female Forsaken, certainly one of the most feared, laying claim to Rand as well. So it's not just, you know, these Balon girls that get access to him. It's Age of Legends style, original borer of the whole into the Dark One's prison. You know, like there's some high-ranking badasses that are also after Rand.
Well, I take my big take there is just the Min and that
and Egwene.
Yeah, Min Egwene, and how Min is really just, I mean, from here on now and moving into the next chapter as well, she stays with him for a very long time.
Yes. I feel like she is first among the wives.
She is the first wife.
Yeah. Min is, you know, she's the one that sticks with Rand for the most part. She's always there. So only two more little quote unquote chapters left here, two little mini ones, and you guys each have one to just regale us with. So Vili, why don't you take us through chapter 49, what was meant to be?
All right. 5 days has passed. Rand has channeled his guts out and he slept for 5 days after that. Obviously also some healing that had to take place there, but the gang is back, the old gang. So it's Min, bit of the new gang, I suppose. Min, Rand, Moiraine, the Lancers, Loyal, and Perrin. The girls from the tower has head back with Varen. They've sped to the tower with Matt to go and see if they can get him back onto the good side and save him from the terrors of Shadow Logoth. And they've been going for 5 days, slow traveling. Rand has been in a litter. We know the girls are gone, and a very important conversation then comes up with Moiraine and Rand now. Sort of what happened, what went down, how did this happen? And he's still a bit pissed off with it, like, oh, now you're back again. But more pointedly, like touching on what happened to Fane. And Moiraine informing Rand that it's probably for the best that he fought a Blade Master and one of the Forsaken, because Fane would have probably killed him.
Jeez. Yeah. That's rough.
That is like coming from her, and she's been on point with everything up until this point. Like, you outfoxed those guys, but Fane is a different kettle of fish. Like actually truly understanding what he is morphed into. That she's just stoked that he never faced Fane off.
Yeah.
But he's now twice marked. He's got his banner has been flying, and his banner is still flying. Instead of a chopped up stick now, they've actually put it on a proper pole. And the Lancers all swear their loyalty to Rand. Just there and then, sort of the first waking up that he gets up to after all of this, they're like, no, this is it. The battle for the dark is what they committed to, or against the dark, and he will be the one leading it. So there's no loyalty to any of the Shinarian lords now. This is what they need to do. This is their purpose, I suppose.
Mm.
And there's not really much else in that chapter but that. We can digest it, break it down. But Rand has got his scars. He's got Min with him, loving him and caring for him and cuddling with him. And the Lancers are his men now. And he's the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah, he's got his little fledgling army.
Yeah, he's got his first fledgling army. And he saw a picture that was picked up by Moraine in one of the villages where they traveled through of him fighting Bazalmon in the clouds. And you can clearly see it's Rand. And he's just like, no, throw that away before people see us. It's like, dude, there's hundreds of these going around. So
Yeah.
You should frame it and stick it on your wall.
Yeah. Seems like Nynaeve saved Rand's life.
Yes.
I think Moraine, who is strong in or Varen, said that if Nynaeve hadn't done what she did, he'd be dead.
But I'm also wondering, that brought me to another point, like if she had had more training before this happened, because she becomes a super awesome healer, would she have been able to heal that wound completely or better?
Maybe.
Probably.
Yeah. So like, it's just because that's just what happened. She, shit luck, Rand. That's what was available at the time.
Yeah.
Because he carries that wound and that pain with him until the end.
Yeah. When does Fane cut him on that wound?
Yes, that's another thing. I don't remember.
I thought it was at the end of this book.
No, apparently not.
No,
my memories of the fight with Turok were in that tent where he turns into Mashadar and comes in.
Really?
Like I had all blended memories mixed together.
That's Toram Rioton, I think, is that Blade Master's name.
Toram, Turak, Blade Masters. Okay, that's where I got confused.
Yeah. I mean, all that talk of like meet me on Toman Head and all that stuff just out the window. Fane's just not here.
Yeah, that's because Rand took so long getting there. Like he had to make another plan. That's why in the beginning of the next book, spoilers, he's already in there with Pedro Nile, Amadicia, and he's trying to convince them to attack the two rivers. Like he's trying to get them to go and fight there to force Rand's hand.
Yeah.
He's making another plan because it took too long.
I struggle to reconcile Fane walking away from the dagger. Like, okay, go make that plan, but take the dagger with you. I mean, he's this like entity that everyone is so afraid of. Could he not have done something to try and get the dagger? I mean, the boys walked into the house and into that collection room from outside after killing one guard.
Yeah.
Sure, they were ambushed by Turak and a bunch of other guards, but that's only after they found the dead guard in the back garden. Fane could have gotten to that dagger easily. He knew exactly where it was as well.
Yeah.
And people would not have looked at him funny for being in the house.
Or he could have just killed everyone. I mean, if he's that dangerous, he could have just walked in, killed everyone, taken everything and left. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm giving him a lot of like leeway, saying like, even if he didn't want to do that, he could still have done it. But I mean, obviously he could have nailed Fades to the wall all the way up the stairs.
Yes.
He's capable of this stuff. Unless his power is somehow tied to the dagger, does he need the dagger to be able to use his powers?
No, I don't
know.
More pins.
Maybe that's just a secret lust that he has for the dagger. It doesn't really do anything for him.
All the more reason to not leave without it.
He hasn't used it against anyone, has he?
Well, he maybe against Yuan. Don't know. But I mean, at that point, Turak has it on display under the Horn of Valere. I just don't get it. I don't get why he didn't try harder to get the dagger.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. Look, the books are getting better. These endings are getting better. This is clearer than book 1's ending.
Yes.
Book 3...
But we're not all the way there yet.
I mean, book 3 gets awesome. Book 4 is apparently one of the best books in the series. Not that I remember a goddamn thing that happened in that book. But it gets better and better and better. So maybe these loose ends will be tied up. Like Bornhold's demise is shit.
Dumb.
It's dumb.
Yes.
Why did Fane leave, and why did he leave everything behind when he has the power to do everything, to take what he wants?
Maybe the blowing of the horn got the Fane just like, oh shit.
That happened after.
Yeah, Fane's already gone.
Although Huron does say that Fane was there recently
Yes.
when they're outside the manor
I think
house.
Fane was there still during that whole waiting. But he didn't expect it to be full-blown freaking war. Like all of a sudden, you've got all the armies, the heroes marching in. It's just too big a scene for him to have Althor for himself.
Regardless of what he was doing, the story leaves too big a gap there, since we get all these points of view from Fane. It wouldn't be unheard of to get a point of view, even if it's like a couple paragraphs from Fane's point of view. But here, where Rand is now arriving to the place that he has called him to, which again was also a weird thing in the first place. Like, if all Fane wanted all this time is to kill Rand, he had other opportunities to do that. Why this elaborate plan to lure him to Toman Head? Then Rand gets there. Fane was there recently, but Fane leaves without you ever seeing what he's even looking at or doing, or
builds more mystery around Fane. Like, and this last, and it's only right at this little end where Moraine says, like, no, it's just as well you didn't. Like, the evil that he's become, he would have killed you.
Yeah, maybe we'll give Robert the benefit of the doubt and assume that we'll get a bit more clarity later.
Because Fane is in the prologue of the next book. Like right away, there he is, right at the beginning.
But that's also months after this.
Yes, and like what happened in between? Oh man. Anyway, I suppose we're just gonna have to read and find out, eh?
It sounds like you could have
famous
been.
Robert Jordan saying, isn't it? Raffo
with it.
Rand, when he's talking to Moiraine, mentions you sent Varen.
Ah, yes, that's right. No, she's like, no, I didn't.
And Moiraine denies it. But what Rand doesn't say is, Varen said you sent her. Rand just says, you sent Varen. And Moiraine at that point must think that Rand assumed Varen joining their party was Moiraine sending him. But because she's being all mysterious, she doesn't address it directly, like, I never sent, or, did she say that? Or like, she doesn't quiz him about it. Rand was also not there when Varen arrived. Rand and Euron and Loyal were already in the Portalstone worlds when Varen arrived. But Varen is so lucky there. If Moiraine was having this conversation with anyone else that was there, Uno, Perrin, Matt, if Moiraine had this conversation with them, Moiraine would have to recognize that Varen told them a lie.
Yeah.
But here she does frown. She has a reaction. So I wonder, I'm going to be on the sharp lookout now from here on out to see whether Moiraine suspects Varen of lying.
Yeah. No, I got that impression as well. There was a reaction from Moiraine, but I think this scene just serves for us as the reader to realize, oh fuck, she's lying.
Yeah, but if you think about it deeper, that maybe that sort of set something in with her, thinking, oh wow, how deep is this Black Aja?
It's a weird one because we never made that connection. I certainly never did. Readers in general don't seem to make that connection until they get to the big reveal when Varen does spill the beans. It was certainly never discussed in like the forums and stuff that you were posting in Joe about the Crystal Throne. It was only sort of when the big reveal happens that everyone's like, oh, she's Black Aja. And now going back reading it, it's so obvious. But yeah, it is clear as day.
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting.
Well, look, being able to lie just means she's free of the oaths, not that she's Black Aja. So I mean, she could have.
That's giving her a lot of wiggle room.
Yeah,
look, there's a lot of possibilities. She freed herself from the oaths. That's all we know. But there's no confirmation yet that she's Black Aja.
True. Factually correct. You're being very nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wait, Vili, Jodie's Black Aja.
I've always suspected that for a long time.
I sort of had to come to grips with the fact that Rand did kind of trigger a civil war in Cairhien.
Well, that's what he does. He's going to break the world.
No, I think Tom triggered that civil war.
Was it Tom?
No, I mean, they were right. No, the granaries and stuff were burning already before Tom did anything. When Barthanes was killed, the supporters of both sides were already tearing at each other. And I think in the confusion of that, open hostility, Tom took his moment and killed Galdrian. But they talk here about the fact that Rand was there in Cairhien And Rand says, but I did nothing. And Moiraine is like, doing nothing is something. Like the fact that you were there and you didn't do anything sort of ratcheted up the tension between these two houses who are now suddenly both vying for your attention. You went to one party. It could be literally that, not even Barthanes' death, but the fact that Rand went to one party and not the other one ended in open hostility and eventually civil war. So, Rand's Dragon Reborn sowing of chaos is well and truly underway.
Yeah. And look, they were going to go into civil war sooner or later. I mean, there was only so much
tinderbox.
Yeah.
There was only so much grain left in that sheds.
G-Man's wild spending was going to catch up with him eventually.
Yes. Okay, I've got 3 more points, and they're all quick ones.
Only?
Massima, already unhinged.
Yes.
Rand finally accepts that Tam is not his biological father. He says it here.
What was the line?
He gives up trying to prove to himself that Tam is his father.
All right. Okay. Tam's sword, my father's sword. Reluctantly, more reluctantly than he had ever done anything in his life, he let go of the hope that he would discover Tam really was his father. There you go.
There we go.
He's looking at the heron mark sword, the busted up sword, and then he goes, Tam's sword, my father's sword, and that's the moment he lets go.
Yeah.
So he realizes, oh shit, wait.
Big moment.
That's something he's been fighting with, probably the thing he's been fighting with the most for the first 2 books.
Since Winter Night.
Yeah. Who is this badass that says he's my father?
Well, that's, maybe it's also just all sort of ties together now that the sword's destroyed.
Yes, it breaks that link. All the the heroes of the Horn calling him loose there, and how much denial can one man possibly harbor?
A lot.
My last, yes, my last note is a lot more lighthearted, and it is that Rand walks past Lan, and Lan just gives him a nod. After the battle in the sky, sheathing the sword, letting Ishmael kill him, all the killing of Turak, because Moraine's been to Turak's. We haven't mentioned this, where she lobs the 2 broken Quaindiar seals. Was in Turak's manor. So they know that Turak was killed and that he was a blade master. So Lan is privy to all this information. The sum total of his praise to Rand is just a nod.
That's a hell of a lot for that stone cold man.
It's like a 4-hour deep dive conversation with a regular person.
Yeah, here is the last king, the last Malkiri king, An Alien. What is his all his names? This hard man that doesn't acknowledge anyone else's prowess with a sword or anything like that. He actually looks at Rand, and he does give him a nod of respect.
Yeah,
which is a big deal.
Indeed.
Okay, I'm done. I promise.
That was a short chapter, and we managed to squeeze a lot out of it, but some very good stuff.
Yeah. So, Jody, why don't you regale us with the final words from this book, Chapter 50, simply titled After.
I'm wondering if I should just read the whole chapter.
Yes.
Go for it.
All right. Chapter 50, After. By ship and horse the story spread, by merchant wagon and man on foot, told and retold, changing yet always alike at the heart, to Aradoman and Tarabon and beyond, of signs and portents in the sky above Falme. And men proclaimed themselves for the dragon, and other men struck them down and were struck down in turn. Other tales spread of a column that rode from the sinking sun across Almouth Plain. 100 border men, it was said. No, 1,000. No, 1,000 heroes come back from the grave to answer the call of the Horn of Valere. 10,000. They had destroyed a legion in the Children of the Light entire. They had thrown Arthur Hawkwing's returned armies back into the sea. They were Arthur Hawkwing's returned armies returned. Well, Arthur Hawkwing's returned. Towards the mountains they rode, towards the dawn. Yet one thing every tale had the same. At their head rode a man whose face had been seen in the sky above Falme, and they rode under the banner of the Dragon Reborn. And then we have a little cycle of the dragon quote here. And the men cried out to the Creator, saying, O light of the heavens, light of the world, let the promised one be born of the mountain, according to the prophecies, as he was in ages past, and will be in ages yet to come. Let the Prince of the morning sing to the land, and the green things will grow, and the valleys give forth lambs. Let the arm of the Lord of the dawn shelter us from the dark, and let the great sword of justice defend us. Let the dragon ride again on the winds of time. The end. Goodbye, everybody.
No, you should read that from the what? Jamal Darian.
No, I didn't read it because I can't pronounce it. From the Charal Dryan to Calamon, The Cycle of the Dragon. Author unknown.
Do you recognize that passage?
What's
Let
that?
the dragon ride again. Yes, of course. I mean,
it's the passage. It's the same quote at the end of Dragonmount, the prologue of Eye of the World. There's 2 excerpts from 2 books, and that's one of them.
All right.
I don't know what the significance of that is, but when I read it, I was like, this sounds familiar. And I went back and I read those quotes at the end of Dragonmount, and that's one of them.
yes, it's all very biblical. And let the valleys give forth lambs.
Yes. The horses eat each other and blah, blah. Okay. So, the end of the book.
Indeed.
Good one. Before we talk about the book as a whole, let's keep our focus just on these last couple of chapters and tell me what your favorite moments were.
You all know what my favorite moment is. I actually thought of one. I'll just go first then, I suppose. I'm talking.
Waiting patiently.
I've now started talking, and I will continue to talk and tell you the following. This is purred happily.
Turak and Rand's fight. Where Turak, the moment where he realizes, where his face changes from boredom to surprise and then to concentration. And that moment of, fuck, I've stepped in it now.
It is immensely satisfying, isn't it?
It is indeed.
More than it should be. The dynamic of the fight is very 2-dimensional. It's like Rand loses, he assumes the void, starts winning, cuts him in half.
So we're sticking with he cuts him in half. All right.
But it is so delicious when it happens, just because, you want Rand to do well. You want him to survive. And then just the way that he dominates this guy that is clearly like put on a pedestal as like an expert swordsman. The fact that Rand bests him is very satisfying.
I mean, that's the first time he actually fights another swordsman, and one that's got the Heron mark, regardless of what we feel of the level of his skill and how he got the blade. He's still a formidable foe. He's not. Yeah. So it's good on Rand.
And it also cements, like, even more so than necessarily killing those Trollocs in the dark when he stole the horn, when he and Loyal took it in the dark. It establishes Rand as a very capable swordsman. So, like, in the next fight that Rand is in, you can feel a bit better about his chances.
Yeah. And there will be more of those.
I think that was a really good one, Jody. That was almost expected, but yes.
What's yours, Vili?
Mine is also with to do with splitting someone in half, but this time it's Egwene splitting Rena in half with a pitcher of water, and then slapping a collar around her neck and giving her what's coming. That for me is just a great. I'd like to say from the start, this whole idea of walking into the strap for the girls and being led into it, and just the betrayal, and then the torture that follows the betrayal for so long, and the dehumanizing of her, giving her a nickname Thule, and it's just all of that moment is just like, I was, fuck yeah, do it.
It is so satisfying. Like, in that moment, you are definitely the Egwene in the scene, right? Like, you want her to boil these chicks in kettles, and you want them to be switched. And I mean, that's the least of it. You want everything that she experienced to come back to them in a very short period of time. So, just magnified tenfold. And Nynaeve sort of like, she acts as the sort of like the school mistress for the reader as well as Egwene, to say, this is not the way, like, this is not justice. Revenge is not justice. There's a difference. But you certainly understand why Egwene wants it. So that little taste of revenge that she gets is...
Oh, man. It might not be justice. It's revenge is revenge. But, man, revenge can be sweet.
Revenge is sweet.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's that was my moment.
Mine is when Rand gives Ingtar the Shinaran funeral rites while he's still alive.
So many good moments.
that it has on Inktar. It is clear. I mean, all three of these are amazing. Hey?
I'm like,
we haven't even talked about killing Ishmael.
Yeah, that guy. Whatever. Fuck. You will serve me or die. I don't care anymore.
Yeah, just goosebumps. Even earlier when you read that section again, I was sitting here and I literally got goosebumps again. We've got a couple of honorable mentions from some of our listeners as well, and some of the stuff that I wanted to put in. Like I said, one of my honorable mentions was Hawkwing, like clapping Huron on the shoulder and saying,
Yes.
"Oh, you know, you fight bravely. Maybe you'll join our ranks." And Huron just being like, "What? Really? Amazing." Adrian wrote in and said that she really appreciated Nynaeve sort of taking charge with the girls and their plan, like, you know, taking the responsibility of putting the bracelet on herself, you know, pulling Egwene off Rena and Seta when she wanted to get the revenge and stuff, sort of taking I mean, this is a bit cliched, but like a motherly role.
Yeah.
It shows Nynaeve stepping into a more, you know, a leadership position, akin to, you know, being the wisdom for a town, and how she also later becomes like a pioneer in the field of healing, and she's, you know, a scientist. She studies stuff, you know, like it's just Nynaeve sort of coming into her own, and sort of looking after her little brood as well, which I agree is also very, very cool, because, you know, can't help but love Nynaeve. And I also really, really enjoyed that the descriptor of how Nynaeve catches that clasp with the power, that whip cracking and like snapping a dust mote out of the air. Just pinpoint accuracy at a distance was awesome. Those are all honorable mentions. So now that we have covered this section, do you want to pick a favorite moment from the books first, or do you want to discuss the book as a whole first? Should we talk about the book? How did you feel about this book? And I mean, it would be hard not to compare it to The Eye of the World, but how did you feel about this book in general? Vili, we haven't heard from you in a minute, so why don't you go first?
I mean, like I said, I've read The Hunt for the Horn in 3 sittings. Granted, I had a hell of a lot more time than you gents had during that stage. But and lockdown in this weird world that we're living in does help with the reading. It was utterly captivating. There was no apple carts. There was a little bit of frustration with pot scrubbing in that, but not a lot of apple carts and long drawn out pieces. It was captivating all the time.
Yeah.
Pacing was better in this book.
I also had that. And relentless.
Yeah.
You know, like the hunt begins early. I mean, early there's a bit of like faffing around in Feldara, but, you know, like that's to be expected, just sort of setting the scene. You can't launch straight into it. But once they leave Feldara, I mean, the hunt itself is
on.
It's great. It is the great hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it doesn't stop. It's just go. Yeah, the pacing is fantastic.
And there's a lot of, I want to sound like a pseudo-intellectual here, but a lot of character building. We see a lot of the development of each and every single character as they come to terms with who they are. Perrin coming to terms with his wolfiness. Everybody coming to terms with who Rand is. Rand coming to terms with who he is. That his father's not his father. The girls, and like you said, Nynaeve taking charge. Yeah, like everybody just coming into their own more and more. And now, like, it's also a bit of an anticlimax. The girls going back to the tower to be novices again. Like, they've lived this adventure. Done more than any Aes Sedai. The Aes Sedai weren't there at all to help in the slightest. They had to. There was just these random weirdos from the 2 rivers that had to go do everything themselves.
And they did it.
Yeah, they saved the world.
Like they were successful
for the moment. Yeah.
It's everyone except Matt. Matt's still just...
Hey, he blew the horn, man. No one else would have had the balls to do that.
That's true. That's true. I mean, but that doesn't signify a lot of character growth for Matt. That is just Matt
is still Matt
being Matt.
Winter Night. I'm starting to see how, like, a lot of people say how in the first couple of books they didn't like Matt. I mean, I do still like him, but there's not a lot of delving, like you saying now, Joe, like with Perrin and with Egwene and the girls, and And with Rand, obviously a lot. There's not a lot of growth there from Matt. Matt is just he's on the back burner for now, and later when there is room for his character to breathe, because he hasn't really had a lot of reason for his character to grow as yet. Like he's basically been a slave to the dagger since the Eye of the World.
Yeah. But look, he doesn't grow much over the books. He always remains who he is. He always remains Matt. He gets all these powers and these armies and this luck and all the stuff that comes around him, but it just seems to like fall on him. It's not like he doesn't achieve it through growth. It just gets slapped on him like plaster all over him as he goes along.
He does. I mean, he does do a lot of heroic stuff.
Yes.
He's the guy in a pinch who is like, okay, fuck, he'll grumble and groan about it, but he'll go do it.
Yeah.
He'll go save the Aes Sedai that he doesn't like from the Seanchan in some elaborate plan. Like, he'll go do that. And he's like, oh, fine, I'll go fucking do this thing. I'll save your bacon again. And then
doesn't he go to the Finns as well and outfox?
He goes and saves Moraine as well.
Saves Moraine. Like, I mean, and then he's all like indignant when things like don't go his way. And so it's like, oh God, like, I can't believe I have to do this again. But he does do it. And
fine, I'll marry the Empress of the Seanchan.
At least you get that insight into his inner working stuff, where here, like, you don't get any Matt points of view.
No.
Like, it's all just Matt just being that chaotic energy. And when you needed it, like, when you needed someone to blow the horn, thank God they had Matt, who just threw caution to the wind and said, fuck it, I'm going to do it. Perrin wouldn't have done that in a million years.
No.
And Rand probably not either. So thank God for Matt and his chaotic energy.
Chaos magic.
No, definitely.
You also, in this book, you get a lot more, like, suddenly you're on the other side of the map again. There's a lot more nations being introduced. You get some more insight into the White Cloaks. And then, obviously, the big one, the Seanchan. I mean, they're introduced here, book 2. I always feel like they're the sort of like, oh, they've come in from the side and, they've wrecked, because I hate them, they've wrecked this wonderful story that I'm so invested in.
Yeah.
Fucking other lame bunch of idiots is running around being douchebags to everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, they're right here. This is virtually the beginning. I mean, I couldn't have expected them to show themselves in Eamon's Field or in Faldara, or in Shadow Logoth. They're the main points of the story in book 1. And you start to hear the rumors in the beginning of the book, and by the end, you are familiar with like a lot of their customs and their nobility and like their history even. Like they've come to the forefront as quickly as you could expect them to. There was no room for them in book 1, and they have always been part of the plan. And now I feel a lot more comfortable with them and their position in the story, where I always used to think of them as interlopers, because they do come from the other side of the ocean.
No, they're the like complete different third party with the third party agenda to just throw spanners in the wheels. And it's easy to have someone around that you can just really despise.
There's enough of that.
There's also the in the beginning of the book, there's Rand sort of, saying goodbye to Egwene and sort of calling it quits on that relationship. And despite the fact that he's done that, he's still compelled to help her here at the end. But with the interaction with Egwene and Min, this is also sort of like a watershed moment, this book, I guess, as a whole, since those two things happen at the very beginning and the very end of the book. But you get confirmation here that Rand and Egwene, that's not going to be a thing anymore. That is, old habits, and they are now dead.
Yeah, like he still goes back for her. He still has feelings for her in that last chapter. His entire focus in that last battle, when he should be defeating Ishmael, is going back for his girl. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's because I've read the book as well. Like I got that feeling when they were in Faldara and they said goodbye. Like, and of they're never going to stop caring for each other. But yeah, confirm that they'll never be married, or those plans that the village had for them.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that they still actually reference their relationship, whatever it's that incarnation of that relationship is. They do still reference it throughout the story. Like, there is still a bond between the eventual Amyrlin Seat and the Dragon Reborn. There's a personal bond between them, not just a bond of convenience. So, Joe, did you have any other final thoughts about the book?
Not really. I mean, I enjoyed this read a lot. I'm looking forward to the next couple of books. I know eventually I won't be looking forward to books 9, 10. But while the going's good, I'm going to get some in. And I felt like this is what this book starts this upward trend now.
Yes. And I mean, this one also ends in a way that the Eye of the World didn't, where it's like, fuck, I need to pick up the next book right now and start reading like immediately what's happening.
Not go and search YouTube videos to find out what the fuck happened. How did this book end? Yeah.
I'm not left confused. I'm left motivated.
Yes.
I think that's also why I didn't pick up the Dragon Reborn yet. It's because the minute I finished Eye of the World, I went straight into the Great Hunt, and I finished that in, what was it, 3 or 4 days.
Wow.
It wasn't the case this time round.
So you've actually read The Great Hunt twice now for this podcast, because you read the whole thing and then had to go back and read the chapters for some reason stuff.
That's why I said like it's a lot of I should remember more from it. Granted, I read it twice, but I also tried to study at school and didn't remember that shit in the exam anyway. So
Okay. Are you guys ready to choose your favorite moment from the book? I mean, that's a big one. Okay, before you do, Billy, I'm going to remind you of what all your favorite moments were in this book leading up to this moment.
I'm ready.
In our first episode, your favorite moment was the introduction of Matt gambling in Faldara. Him gambling down in the storerooms with the peasants. In our next episode, you called your favorite moment Mic Drop Varen.
Yep.
And it's when Varen revealed to Swan and Moraine that she's onto their little thing and that she knows that Rand is the Dragon Reborn, or that they think he is. The next one was Rand's interaction with Huron in the Portal Stone worlds. So, when Huron was all confused about what's going on and Rand sort of assuming that leadership role and being kind of nice to Huron and sort of giving him something to pin his hopes on. In episode 13, it was Dice Daimar, the introduction of Dice Daimar.
Yeah.
In episode 14, it was Jeffrem Bornhold's compassion in that small town.
Yes.
Like just showing his class. And episode 15, it was Rand channeling at the Portal Stone. Big one. Rand consciously channeling, for the first time and in a not insignificant way. And then in our previous episode, it was Elaine and Nynaeve escaping the Sean-Chan trap. And obviously in this episode, it was Egwene getting her revenge against Rena. Now, in light of all of that, what was your favorite moment?
I am going to build on the last two favorite moments as my favorite moment, because it was the thing that I remember the most from reading it the first time, is this devious Leandrin trap set for the girls, and them, or Egwene rather, getting caught, and the escape, that it was just the girls that got themselves out of it. The same crew that went is the same crew that got themselves out of it at that stage. That's my favorite moment.
It's so good knowing that they can overcome that moment of complete and utter hopelessness when they fasten that Adam around Egwene's neck and everything that comes after that. It is just, the picture they paint is so hopeless.
No, and without help. Like even Elaine saying, "Oh, I wish Rand was here with his sword." Rand was there with his sword. He played no part in them getting out of there and doing their thing. They did it. They got themselves in it, and they got themselves out of it.
Okay, Joe, should we go through your favorite moments through the ages?
Yes, please.
All right. In episode 10, it was the introduction of a bigger world and all the politics and everything that goes with it.
Oh, yeah.
The Amerlin arriving in Faldara and all that stuff. In episode 11, it was Swan and Varen sighing and like wiping sweat from their brow after Rand had his audience with him. So similar to Villy's Mic Drop Varen, but more about like the effect that he had on them and just how hectic it was to be with him. In the next episode, it was 5 arrows, 5 Grolm.
No. Yeah.
In episode 13, it was when in that chapter, The Watchers, when Moraine had basically asked the question, like, how loyal is Lan really? Is he going to throw himself into danger at my, now that he's got like other motives and stuff and other passions? And your favorite moment was the answer that Lan basically gave to that question by, stabbing that Drakkar and then like putting himself in harm's way, like stepping in closer.
Yes, that was a great moment.
It was a very cool one.
It was.
In episode 14, Jody, your favorite moment was Rand the celebrity. Because
everyone knows Rand
at the tower. Yeah, everybody knows Rand. And in episode 15, it was Tom killing those thugs in the inn that had killed Dina.
Mm-hmm.
Or Dina. In episode 16, it was Perrin's chirp to Matt about the girl that liked him having a face like a goat.
Goat face, yeah.
And in this episode, obviously, it was the Turak fight.
Yeah. All right. That does remind me. My favorite moments for all this book is Rand's demonstrations of his prowess as a fighter. Killing the Trollocs in the forest, beating Turak at the end, 5 arrows, 5 Grolm. Like, he's not just the Dragon Reborn. Even without any powers whatsoever, he can take you down. Like, he doesn't matter. You give him a stick, you give him arrows, you give him a sword. He's a tough cookie.
He's a formidable force now.
Yeah, and he was born that way and trained by a soldier from birth to take some, not to be a soldier, but these tips and tricks that they assuming the void kind of a thing. I mean, he would be lost without that. That is,
yes, he would have. Yeah, Rand really does come into his own with the sword. Like, I mean, in the beginning in Feldari, he runs away from the Trollocs in the hallway, just thinking like, oh, I'm going to get my ass handed to me. And then the next time he draws his sword is like in the night, and he kills like 8 of them with four different forms or something. Like he really does escalate his, because he's practicing. Like whenever you join him, like he's busy working through the forms. So like that's happening in the background the whole time. It is, and then at the end of the book, he kills a Blade Master.
Yes, but now swords fuck.
A Sean Chan blade. Okay, so my favorite moments were, the first one was Rand's huge bow and the fact that only he, Lan, and Perrin could draw it.
Mm-hmm.
In episode 11, it was Perrin picking up Leanne and moving her out of the way.
Yeah.
In episode 12, it was also 5 arrows, 5 Grolm.
Mm-hmm.
In episode 13, it was that conversation between Moiraine and Lan in the library, the Watchers, where she's doing what I call it, the psychological jiu-jitsu with him.
Mm-hmm.
In episode 14, it was Urian being an Aiel badass, like standing in the road and like the Shinaran soldiers charging him down. And
you are such a Aiel fanboy.
I am unashamedly. In the next episode, it was Rand just starting to, like, after Varen and Ingtar had resurfaced on the scene, Rand just giving orders to everyone, like just ordering everyone around without realizing it. And then also later, like talking to them as equals and Perrin noticing that. In our penultimate episode, it was Nynaeve's complete disrespect for Leandrin. When Leandrin comes into the room to tell them you're coming on this quest, like Nynaeve at one point doesn't even call her Leandrin Sedai, she just calls her Leandrin.
Yeah.
And is like constantly questioning her motives, like wait a minute, where are we going? What are we doing exactly? And Egwene just sort of like going, shut up, Nynaeve, just Sedai, like let's just do what she says. And Leandrin getting angry but not wanting to like spring the trap yet. She has to pull these girls along. And then in this episode, it was Rand giving Ingtar his Shinaran funeral rites to redeem him. But my favorite moment from the book would probably be something that only happened at the very, very end. And I don't think we've even discussed it in this chapter now. And I think, Vili, it's in your chapter, where Moiraine, someone says to, I think it's Moiraine, that says to Rand, you are who you are.
Mm-hmm.
You are the Dragon Reborn. And you now must choose, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Are you going to accept your fate and try to fulfill the prophecy, or are you going to walk away? And it doesn't tell you what Rand chooses. But we know, obviously, because there's a remaining series of another 12 books. But we know that he chooses to try to fulfill the prophecy. And it's basically Rand accepting the fact that he is the Dragon Reborn. And it's easy to, for me anyway, I have always thought of the end of book 3 where he takes Kalandor as the final sign that he is definitely the Dragon Reborn, but it's here already. He has accepted that he's the Dragon Reborn. He's marching under the banner. He knows that the heroes of the Horn have called him Lews Therin. He knows that Tam is not his dad. He's got these 2 heron brands on his hands, and he knows what they mean. It cannot be coincidence anymore. So he here has decided, okay, fine, I will try and do this thing for everyone. And that's huge. That's a huge moment in this book, and that's a watershed moment.
That's a Spider-Man moment there. Great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah. So there we did it, guys. We've done the whole of The Great Hunt. It feels like just yesterday we started this podcast and we're already 2 books through. I'm thinking, how can we slow this down? But that's crazy talk.
No.
Okay, so thanks for all the wonderful feedback that people had sent in. If any of you have any comments for us, I know that, it might feel like your comments are only relevant to us if you are listening to the podcast in real time and sort of keeping up to date. But even if you're listening to this a couple of years down the line and you feel like we've missed anything or you want to contribute, do send that in to us. I mean, you've heard me reference old mistakes and old callbacks plenty of times before. So just do send in those comments. And the easiest way to do that is to message us directly on Twitter at Blood and Ash Pod, or on Facebook at Blood and Ashes Podcast, or go to our website, which is just bloodandashespodcast.com, where there's a comment section where you can leave some comments that'll make its way to me. All these links are also in the description of the episode. So if you have not, at the speed of light, grabbed a pen and paper and written all this stuff down or committed it to memory, it is in your episode description as well. So next time, we will be starting book 3 of the Wheel of Time, The Dragon Reborn. And as we have come to expect, we will be covering 6 of the chapters. So that is the prologue all the way through to the end of chapter 5. The prologue is called Fortress of Light, which Jody and I know is already set in the Fortress of Light. I mean, doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to figure that one out, but a certain someone makes an appearance there.
Yeah.
And then chapter 5 is Nightmares Walking. So go read those chapters, go send us your feedback, your comments, your favorite moments, send us anything you want to say about those chapters or any of our previous episodes, and we'll try and include as much as we can in the show. And on that exciting note, I will bid you all a fond adieu, and I will see you guys next time.
Goedemiddag.
Goeienaand.
Tot ziens.
Tot ziens.
Tot ziens, allemaal.